Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, philosophy, nerd, Marine Corps, and law enforcement veteran. I would argue a real Republican, and I got a special dramatic brain poison for you today, okay? I got Chud Logic, who is a drama streamer who used to be in the Twitch and YouTube political debate scene. I like him. I think he's a good content creator. I think he's funny. Some of my chat hates him, but it is what it is. I would say he's actually, despite having a lot of really aggressive rhetoric and meme rhetoric, he's oftentimes kind of like a non-woke lefty. And what I mean by that is he probably believes in universal healthcare. He probably wants trans adults to be able to transition without state intervention and even to be helped by the state. He probably doesn't hate immigrants. He probably is just like a little bit racist to them because he thinks it's funny to throw elbows. All in all, like in general, he's actually like a pretty principled lefty. But the reason why he codes as a right winger, and I think he's going to open up this debate saying he's a fascist, is because he doesn't like people breaking the law, flouting the law, attacking police officers, destroying social institutions, all that kind of stuff. And so he's kind of like almost like a lefty conservative. And what I mean by that is like left-wing policy wants to conserve social institutions, and kind of an interesting guy. So I actually really enjoy his content. Whereas Pisco, I think, is a liberal, progressive, meaning that he probably is a liberal. He does believe in maximal human freedom. But then the progressives or the leftists will make some arguments about something in reference to technocratic policy, and he'll follow them down that logic and he'll adopt it for his own. Now, Pisco obviously is, I'm going to be ableist, an autistic, legalistic, former lawyer, debate bro who's still in Twitch and YouTube politics, whereas Chud, like I said, has moved into the drama community. So it's probably going to be a meme debate. It's probably going to be a little silly. There's probably going to be goofs and gaffes and weird things thrown into the actual substance of the conversation. But truth be told, I'm excited to get into it with you guys today. So quick chill, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got it, memberships if you got them. Let's go. Up.
This.
I'm sick, bro. How you doing?
Dude.
Wait a second. I gotta show people your beautiful mug.
Dude.
1 second.
It's been a minute, dude.
What? It's been, how long has it been since we talked?
Years, probably. I'm a fascist now. I don't know if you heard. I think so.
What the fuck? I thought you were like a communist.
Well, that's it. Let's just say I've had a political awakening. I don't know if you've heard of a guy called Nick Fuentes, if you're familiar with his work.
I'm sorry for laughing, but like Pisco, I said, hey, the dissident right is correct that these 4 things are going wrong with society, that, existential technological evolution, mass demographic change on a very fast rate, income inequality, and something else. These things are, the dissolution of the social fabric. These things are happening. They're bad for society. They're fueling radicalism. And that's what I agree with on the dissident right. I just think their prescriptions suck. And then Pisco was like, you're a Nick Fuentes groiper. So having like Chud open this debate by saying like, yeah, I'm a Nick Fuentes groiper. I know it's a joke. Mad funny.
I dabble.
I've got to say, listen, I want to be upfront. I was going to make jokes about you getting deported, but I felt that was a bit much. So, I think we'll leave that at the door. Okay?
Do you understand that we have Trump as the president now? That like I'm Hispanic and that could be taken as racially insensitive?
Yeah, of course. But that's what I do. I do racially insensitive jokes. But I said I'm not going to do it.
Now.
I said I'm not going to do it, bro. I'm being nice.
Well, typical British person. Say they're not going to do it, but you bringing it up means you're kind of doing it.
Yeah,
What's up, man? Listen, it's been a minute. It's been a fucking minute. I'm glad to talk to you.
I'm glad to talk to you too.
Tell me.
I'm glad to talk to you too, okay?
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to get something straight.
Yeah.
Did you rape Stardust last night?
Oh, no, what are you saying? What are you saying? Why are you saying this?
Conceptually.
No, what are you?
What do you think I used to do, bro? You never watched my content, clearly. No, come on. What's going on with Stardust, bro? Tell me.
She calls into my. I'm doing something with Wig TV. You know him? Ever heard of him?
I'm familiar with Wick, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, this is my show, so I'm going to be pausing intermittently overall because there's some deep cuts here, okay? Stardust straddled the Twitch and YouTube political community, the drama community, and weirdly enough, like Richard Spencer, she was doing like a few interviews with dissident right-wing people. Nick Fuentes knows who Stardust is and is kind of friends with Stardust. And so, it's kind of funny how high Stardust was able to climb in reference to like clout and, who her friends were and this, that, the other. But truth be told, I haven't really heard a lot about her since probably a debate between her and I think like Beckett and Chud and something. And it was something around like her and her boyfriend, Beckett of Crabs, like breaking up because it was around the time of Hunter Avallone almost getting murdered. So I'll try to make this as brief as possible. Hunter Avallone was a large conservative skit YouTube creator. Okay. And then he went lefty and soy and lib and broke up with his wife, and his wife did something crazy during their divorce. And, a lot of people like memed and dunked on him. But Stardust was kind of like sweeping for and supporting Hunter and Carissa, I think her name was. She was trying to be nice about it while still covering the drama. And she felt like she was getting insight from them, but realistically, the insight was kind of sweeping. The way that she was covering it was kind of sweeping for the Avallones. And so Chud and a bunch of drama folks started attacking her and attacking the Avallones. And then Hunter, because this is not relevant, but entirely interesting, Hunter Avallone started living in a different apartment than his wife, started dating like a really nice, like redneck girl who had obviously been abused. But then her ex-boyfriend was a psycho stalker and came over to their house and tried to murder Hunter and almost murdered Hunter and his girlfriend. And so who was it? Stardust was debating whether or not Hunter had done the right thing while he was almost being murdered. And the drama people were being incredibly rude and incredibly mean about that. And that's the last time that I really heard of Stardust interacting with the space. That's the last time that I heard it. And so, I'm happy that she's still out there. I'm happy that she's still throwing elbows, but Chud has not been a fan of Stardust since the Hunter Avallone coverage.
Familiar with his works. He does this thing where he brings in like D-tier celebrities like me to come in and have like
From the Ashes says, how much to expedite Destiny React? Like $1,500, King. We're probably locked into this for 2 hours. If you amongst the chat, thank you for the donation, by the way. But if you are amongst the chat and they want Destiny content of Destiny Hutch and IRI yapping about current events, I'm down.
Like I don't know, some kind of struggle session, and everyone comes in and says stuff. And she was among the many callers who called in and said that someone was like racist towards her. And I thought that was fucked up. And she reported him to the police.
Okay, I got to be honest with you, man. I think you got fucking goy walked a bit there, to be honest with you.
What the fuck does that mean, goy walked? That sounds like a Groiper term.
Well, I don't know if it's a Groiper term. I saw it on Twitter and thought it was funny. I don't know if Stardust is Jewish, actually. But I think you were too kind of subservient to her, Also,
what do you mean
Indian,
subservient?
You guys don't like the memes. I like the memes just fine. Sorry, real quick. I know I'm interrupting the flow, but Fashion 40 asked something important. Connor, can you answer this unrelated question? Why do you drink your tea out of a glass and not a mug or a teacup? Because I boil my water to 212 degrees. I could probably reduce the temperature, but realistically, that's a temperature that I know that is going to work. 212 Fahrenheit, I'm assuming, right? I think 212 Celsius would actually melt my body. So it's really stinking hot. And if I stick it in a mug, I'm basically melting my face, melting my mouth, burning my mouth for the first hour that my tea is in a mug if I put it in a mug. Whereas if I put it in a glass radiates enough heat outside of itself. It does not maintain heat well enough. And so as a result, it actually gets cold relatively fast. And dude, I like, basically I'm having like a black tea latte. You know what I'm saying? I got 2 bags of black tea. I got a little bit of almond milk, and I got like 2 things of stevia. I mix it up together. It's not enough of a kick compared to a coffee, but it's still like enough to get the day started. And that's what I'm looking for. Anyways, back to the content.
Well, you kind of bowing down to her.
I'm like, yeah, it was racist. And like, what do you want me to say? It was racist. Bowing down. Like, I'm gonna look like an asshole if I'm like, it didn't hurt your feelings and it's not racist. It was racist. And so, what did you want me to do?
Pisco, my
What did you want me to do?
I've got much to teach you. It seems.
We'll
start with the law today. We'll start with the law today.
Wait. Let's role play. Let's role play. Let's role play. So I'm gonna be Stardust. Ready? Pisco. Well, I was this person is like your best friend, and he called me. You know,
don't care, bitch. Don't care.
Really?
I'm sorry for laughing. I'm sorry for laughing. I'm sorry for laughing. Does anybody know who they're referring to? Who was Pisco's friend that was being racist to Stardust? Who does anybody know?
Hey, you would do that.
Well, I mean, probably, yeah. I mean, I'm a very big believer in excessive force. So, you know, I'll be on
clearly. No, but Stardust was like complaining about some person who attacked her. If I...
Substance the Twitter clipper? Is that a person? Substance the Twitter clipper. Okay. Hi, Miradol. I think we used to be friends on Twitter. Then I made you angry about some cop thing, and then you stopped being my friend on Twitter, but that's fine. My Twitter has since been nuked. But hi, good to see you, Miradol. If that's true, sorry, I should just let them tell the story. I guess I'm just curious what egregious behavior somebody would participate in that would warrant reporting to law enforcement. I understand if you use the tools. If somebody says, no, we had a DM about it and then we made peace. Oh, good. That's good to hear, Miradol. I'm happy to hear that. But the good. God bless old Connor. God bless old Miradol for that. But my question is, what warrants reporting to law enforcement versus if somebody sends you something like schizo, unhinged, kind of like sexually suggestive or whatever, you can blame somebody for that, and then you can typically get them banned or at least like a suspension or something like that. Somebody says a casual 1500, Doobie, where are you at? We all know that you love Destiny content. Thank you for the chip. First he says the person is a Queeman Chud chatter in Clipper named Substance. Okay. Well, at least we know who it is, but we don't know what the egregious behavior was that is related to reporting them to law enforcement. Maybe Chud and Pisco can offer us some insight.
I say that. You know what they say, right?
What?
You know what they say?
What do they say?
They say that I cultivate a community of snarkers. They say this.
Yeah. Well, I know about your little call with Queeman where he told you to be more chippy. So I'm wondering if that has impacted that.
I won't say that. Well, listen, Chud is saying my call with Queeman. It was a call in my Discord that was illegally recorded against my rules. All right. Okay. But it wasn't like anything beyond that. Queeman is Queeman like your friend?
Well, you tell me, dude. You've spoken to him more recently on a voice call, apparently. So you tell me, bro.
Well, you're both British. I'm told that Queeman comes from your community. That's what people tell me.
Holy Fazoli. Razzle Smasher says he didn't call the cops, lol. He's memeing. The guy sent pictures of severed cow heads to Stardust to taunt her after she made a joke on Twitter about Sherry. Woof. That is bananas. Okay, that's a little spicy, Meatball. Yeah, that's a little spicy. That's a little spicy.
He does, but I've had to cast him out because he's unfortunately been too attacking with some colleagues of mine. He's a Hassan fan. He's gone after all the commentary guys, and they don't like me anymore. So I'm kind of raped, basically.
Who are the commentary guys? This is Nicholas Diorio,
Nick Diorio, Willie Mac Show. Tommy
I learned
C.
who Nick Diorio was. He blocked me. I've never spoken to this man in my life.
Oh, he does
Nick
that.
Diorio.
He does that. Yeah, he likes.
I haven't, but I haven't talked to him.
Okay.
I haven't said a word.
Oh no, I have to start drawing things. Sorry, I'm so involved. This is great for me. Okay, this is great for me. I know this is probably terrible for you guys. So let me explain real quick. Chud had an exodus. Okay, he's much like the Jew Moses. Okay, Destiny was keeping him in content slavery for a long time, just like whipping his back, which is going to be even funnier when I draw this in a moment. And so Chud is much like Moses, and so Chud led a drama exodus from the DGG community, where the people who were into the drama content for Destiny, but also didn't like the way that Destiny conducted himself, and also did not like the way that he treated Mr. Girl, they left, you know. And I'll be drawing Steven instead of the Mad King today. He's going to be like Pharaoh Tutankhamun II, who is estimated to have been the Pharaoh at the time of the Exodus. And then Chud Logic is like Moses, and he brings his people into the Promised Land, and the Promised Land is commentary. But in commentary, there's a bunch of Canaanites, okay, and there's many tribes, and in the land of the Canaanites, there's hostile factions, like the Babylonians, I would say, and the Persians, and I would say that those are Turkey Tom. And those are, Turkey Tom and Augie RFC. And then there's friendly people like Nicholas Diorio is he's a large guy. I'll be nice. I actually like Nicholas Diorio's content a lot. But Nicholas Diorio is he's the prostitute in the city of Jericho. You remember when Israeli spies or Jewish spies, they go into like the city of Jericho and they're walking around and they're kind of spying on stuff and they're taking a look around. And then they almost get caught by the local city guard, and the city guard wants to find them and kill them and put their heads on pikes because they know the Israeli army is outside. And so Nicholas Diorio is like the prostitute that became a part of the nation of Israel, who protected the spies, protected Queeman and protected Chud Logic's people on their exodus. And as a result, they became a temporarily honored person. Rahab, there you go. Thank you. I knew somebody would know the reference. Rahab. And so Nicholas Diorio is Rahab. And but then what's happened since then is that Israel has conquered the commentary community. They have conquered a vast territory in the Eastern Mediterranean. And now it's a question of whether or not the Babylonians and the Persians are going to come and try to stomp out the fledgling state of Israel. Patriarch says, don't compare Jews to that bunch of arslers. I will. And not only am I going to compare it, I'm going to draw it. All right. Hey, we just figured out what our first paint was going to be today. Let's go.
Word is, dude.
It's because he's worried of your great legal knowledge, but he shouldn't be.
Sorry. To be honest, I was going to do... when I was originally thinking about this, I was going to do Lord of the Rings. Okay. I was going to do Lord of the Rings. Like, I was going to make Nicholas Diorio the steward of Gondor, who's a steward and is trying to maintain power on behalf of the long lost king, but he jealously does not want to let the new king into the kingdom. And I was going to make, like Chud Logic, like Aragorn. And I was going to make, anyways, I had analogies for Lord of the Rings for all the various characters. But I think I'm going to go with the Jewish Exodus. I think that's funny because, Chud Logic and Queeman sometimes make anti-Semitic comments. So I want to, this is hella long. Well, if you're talking about me, I talk a lot. I don't know if you're new to the stream or not, Officer Nasty, but I do talk a lot. If you're talking about the content, we're not going to get through all the content. I think you guys know me. I watch 30 to 45 minutes of the content. I turn it into 90 minutes to 2 hours of content. And then we typically just miss out on some key moments because I talk too long. So my apologies, but we get excellent mind maps out of the drawings. So let's go.
About what?
Well, exactly. Good question. I'm about to ask you the same thing, bro.
Fuck. Well,
anyway, no, wait a second. Sorry, dude. I thought of a better joke and it's too late now. But what I should have said to you when you asked that, what have you done? You failed to realize that.
Christian Blair's, I'm definitely going to take professional feedback from a Oiler. You're saying this is my biggest criticism outside of Connor being late? What is? Tell me specifically.
Ethan Klein always wins. Fuck, that would have been so much better, dude. That would have been so much better.
Oh, shit. Fucking Kleins are doing this. I don't have anything inherently against the commentary class or commentary community or whatever the fuck it is you guys call yourself. You just do like drama stuff. You do like Chris Chan.
Yeah, sure. Drama, rapes,
What?
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of retired the format, but I'll still talk about like if someone gets accused of some sexual misconduct.
Christian Blair says, not finishing the content sometimes, the good content anyways. Let me give you some feedback back and we can try to play this out. So I have no problems with finishing good content. So for instance, if this was 2 hours long and it was fire the whole way through and we knew that we wanted to react to it over a course of days, Nicholas Diorio does that. So for instance, I think he did content nuke Ethan Klein. Oh, yeah, he did content nuke Hassan Piker, excuse me. And he did it over like multiple viewings, right? And so he has like 3 2-hour segments, and I think he has 1 6-hour segment. And so if there's like a specific piece of content that you feel is going to be like a cornerstone of the Twitch and YouTube political zeitgeist for a prolonged period, and actually seeing all of it is relevant to its commentary, I have no problems with you dropping in the chat and being like, hey, this is something that you should you should watch in full. Then I would be down for that. That's not a problem. Got you. Okay. Yep.
I know you were terrified to go over Destinies. I get it. It's fine. Being a former Orbiter as well. We're from the same plantation. I totally get that fucking situation. Okay. But
these are racially and sexually offensive remarks you're making. I just want to say that I disavow you.
Okay, I'll try and rein it in a bit.
Plantation?
Seriously, dude, I do want to have like a serious conversation, okay? It's me and it's you. Okay. So can we get started where we began with this? Because you're actually quite rude about me and you're being very nice now. So I need to challenge you on this.
Rude to you? I said, fuck you.
Yeah, you said,
Did
fuck
you take
you,
it personally?
Chud dumbass, because I said that I believe the takes I saw on Twitter were motivated by emotion, fear, or politics. And I think that's true.
Yeah. And you took it personally because you what, believe the kayfabe?
I wouldn't say I took it personally. I just thought it was rich coming from you, right? Because you're a fucking dumbass, bro. Okay? I actually listened to one of your takes and when I looked into it, and it turns out you're just wrong.
Oh, so you did a little fucking research? I didn't prepare by watching your shit. You have your people like sending you clips of mine?
Dude, I didn't need to watch you do any research. I've watched 50 hours of body cams. 50 hours of body cams. That's all I need.
There's needed context. There's needed context. So the person who told me, by telling me, I mean added me on Twitter, with that clip was Substance, was this Twitter account Substance.
Yeah.
There was also apparently in my Discord.
Yeah.
And that's the person who Stardust called her, sent a picture of gore of a cow. That was like and among other things that he did that were racist. So it actually does tie into our intro there. But yeah, that's how I knew what you said. I didn't do like fucking research into your takes. And just 1 second, like someone's at my door. I don't know why. I might be killed. Just 1 second.
All right, go on.
Okay, I'm gonna fast forward this, but if you're sending somebody gore videos with implications of like violent harassment, I'm not gonna care if Stardust reported you either to social media tools to get you suspended or banned. I'm also not going to care if she reported you to law enforcement because she actually thought that you were like a legitimate stalking, doxing, harassing freak. I have no problems with that. So the last 30 minutes are legit just Chud screaming you're an R-word, Pisco. Dang. I mean, that sounds base to me. Anonymous chatter for 5. Thank you for the chip, King. I'm figuring out the drama community is a bunch of tough talking wannabe tough guys that are actually thin-skinned men who gossip like old women. I know, but like, don't we all like gossip? Is that really such an indictment? What I don't know, man. It's one thing to have, how do I phrase this properly? It's one thing to know that you spend a ton of time and energy that you might regret on your deathbed listening to people talk about inane drama as a coping mechanism for mortality, right? That's what I would say. Sometimes everything's heavy, everything's serious, everything's crazy. You know, there's dead people and famine and disease and this, that, the other. Sometimes it's fun to just listen to 8 hours of we all used to be friends. One of us is fat. One of us is like skinny and kind of effeminate with a shrill voice. And one of us is trans now. But the trans girl guy was bullying the fat gay guy. And now the other fat straight guy. And now the skinny guy are bullying the trans guy. And, you know, like just hours upon hours of just like stupid inane shit that goes nowhere, that you listen to while you're doing the dishes or while you're cleaning up the house or while you're doing whatever. And I don't know, man. Like, I just want to stand the commentary and drama kings real quick, that while I do think that almost none of them could take a punch and almost none of them would know how to fight their way out of a wet paper bag, they do provide us with beautiful, beautiful, beautiful content to distract us from the serious shit in life. Hans Meyer says, hey, I found a case for officer included hazard Barnes versus Felix. Cool. First T News says, but just to be clear, I also read hours of the Wall Street Journal, both news and opinion section every single day. Well, there you go. You gotta have the same way that we have a diet of food, right? You need a certain amount of protein, you need a certain amount of vegetables, certain amount of fruits, certain amount of carbs, et cetera, and that's what you need to consume every day in order to be healthy. But every now and then, you just want a little Mickey D's, a little Chick-fil-A, a little Chipotle, a little whatever. Those are the things that are going to make your world better. And they just give you a nice little pop, right? So you can't be eating Mickey D's every single day, but every now and then it's fine. Every day, every now and then. All right, let's continue.
I was about to do a bit.
Where were we? I'm sorry. I'm pretty sick.
No, it's okay. You're making excuses already. I understand. Don't worry. Okay, bro. Anyway, we're talking about substance. So here's the thing, right? You were baited by a clipper, right? I didn't really have that big an issue with you. I was talking about how everyone is along political lines on this.
Sorry. First T News says, that reminds me, Wendy's is starting a new Biggie Bag meal. This is very tempting. I need a Wendy's sponsorship. Apparently, it's only $6.
And hasn't actually looked at anything, and I included you within that, right?
Don't bitch out now. You said, "Oh, it's political. He's got a bias,"
okay,
as though that's informing my take.
Well, okay, it is informing your take, I believe, and I can explain why I think that. But beyond that as well, okay, I wasn't even like directing it at you. It was a very broad comment, but it was clipped and sent to you in order to provoke you, right? When I said, and this is where we can get into the conversation. I said I saw one of your takes and thought, oh, that's interesting. But I looked into it and turned out it's totally fucking false and wrong, dude. Your claim that there needs to be lethal force justification for each bullet fired. Not correct. Untrue.
In virtue of what is it untrue?
When an officer decides to use lethal force, okay, there is precedent for this, that they don't need to justify every single bullet fired. They only need fire until the threat is extinguished.
So
I hope they don't talk past each other. If they talk past each other, I will fast forward. Okay. And what I'm just going to tell you guys this straight up, because we've had people pop in a chat and say every bullet needs to be justified, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let me clarify what I mean. Once you reach the imminent threat of death or great bodily harm, you are allowed to take action in order to try being a keyword, prevent death or great bodily harm, right? And so 3 shots in under a second, you're not evaluating each trigger pull as a conscious choice by the officer. Those are all part of the same action, that 2 to 3 shots are what's necessary in order to prevent his imminent threat or death or great bodily harm, okay? And then likewise, if let's say that you have a mag dump, there's a guy, he's right in front of you, he's got a knife, he's charging you, and then you do like half a mag dump, right? You have 17 rounds, you put like 8 into the guy, and then he falls down. Well, let's say that a round actually goes through his body and hits somebody else. Or let's say that a round actually misses and hit another person. Now, you'll be judged based off of the fact that you were inaccurate, that you didn't hit the target, or there was an innocent person standing behind the target. You'll be graded off of all those things. And when the shoot team comes out, they're going to evaluate each one of those bullets. But what they're not going to do is they're not going to say, okay, in a 3-second elapsed time frame, bullet number 1 is justified, bullet number 2 is justified, bullet number 3 is justified, bullet number 4 is justified, but bullets 5, 6, and 7 are not justified. The reason why they're not going to do that is they're going to understand that within the elapsed time frame of a shooting, which is oftentimes only a few seconds, that effectively the action-reaction gap is such that the event ending, like for instance, like the threat being eliminated, and then the your action to stop engaging in a self-defense action, there's going to be an action-reaction gap where it's going to take a second for you to realize, oh shit, the dude's down, right? And so they're going to give you that 5-second window. Now, what's going to happen though with certain cases is that there was a case, I want to say it was in Detroit, but it was in some Midwestern state. And what happened was there was a guy who had a knife. He was charging law enforcement. He got gunned down, but then a cop put an entire magazine into him over the course of like 20 seconds. Like the dude's down on the ground and he's like wounded or whatever. And he's kind of like moaning and rolling around. But then the cop just kind of like lines up shots and puts like another 5 or 6 shots in him over the course of 20 seconds. And there was an argument about whether or not it was justified. I actually have no idea how the case in court played out. I have no idea how it played out. But the officer's rationale was, I saw him trying to get back up. Therefore, because he had a knife, because he had just charged us, I still viewed him as an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. Whereas what the prosecutor against the cop argued was that no other officers were firing. The threat was terminated. He was on the ground. And basically, you just put rounds into him because you fucking felt like it. And I actually don't remember how that case was fought out. But I will argue that somebody like Pisco or a more progressive or liberal prosecutor would argue that the second half of the magazine was totally unjustified because he was already down on the ground. No other cops were shooting, and he took like an extra 20 seconds. Christina says, great to see you in my YouTube feed. #Valor. Thanks, Christina. I just want to warn you, though, because you seem like a nice person. I hope you're familiar with the content, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up. First T News says, also a really good sub is on sale at Publix. It's nothing to do with what we're talking about, bud. Guys, y'all can chat amongst yourselves, chat about whatever you want to talk about, but instinctively, I like to read veterans of the chat here, and if you're not talking about the content, I'm not going to respond to you. Remind me of that rule, please, so I don't go off onto weird tangents. But, Christina, I need to warn you before we continue. Valor Media Network is a noble digital media effort, okay? Ken Harbaugh is a great guy. The Men Talking Mindfulness people are a great guy. The Geedunk people are great people. The new guy who's doing his own show that's done well, good for him. I forget what his show is called. But that's like the nice restaurant, okay, in the front of Valor Media Network. There you walk up, there's a nice host or hostess. They greet you at the door. They welcome you into the establishment. They walk you to your table. They give you menus. They put in the appetizers on time. They bring you your food on time. And then they present you with a reasonable check, and then they leave, right? That's the pre-recorded content of Valor Media Network. The live stream of Valor Media Network is a bar on the back of the restaurant. And when you walk back there, people are having schizophrenic conversations. They're beating each other with bar stools. They're getting crazy with it because that's where that's where the real business happens. So if you're more into a casual but almost elite dining experience that you expect to get something substantive out of, I strongly recommend the pre-recorded content. If you want to sit down in a raucous bar and hear people say crazy things and hit each other with bar stools, then you're more than welcome to stay. But I just want to give you that warning before we continue with the content, okay? So, Christina, please be warned.
Oh, right. So that should let you know that deadly force, right, to the extent that there continues to be a pervasive threat, it would continue to justify the firing of bullets.
You're stuttering a bit there, bro. You're stuttering a bit there. I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me make it really clear. Let me make it really clear.
That means that each bullet needs to be justified.
Let me make it clear.
So what you just said proves my point.
Okay, no, it doesn't at all, and you're wrong, and I'll explain how. Okay. Now, I do need to read this. I'm making that clear because obviously I don't know this off my head. Okay. So hopefully that's okay because I'm not a fucking lawyer like you are. Okay. But this was actually determined in a case called Plumhoff versus Ricard. Okay.
Plumhoff. Yeah.
Yep.
And the SCOTUS decision from the 2010s.
And this was in regards to a police chase. Now, obviously, the violence of the police chase contributed to the decision that lethal force was authorized. But separately to that, they said this. We now consider respondents' contention that even if use of deadly force was permissible, petitioners acted unreasonably in firing a total of 15 shots. We reject that argument. It stands to reason that if police officers are justified in firing at a suspect in order to end a severe threat to public safety, the officers need not stop shooting until the threat has ended. As petitioners noted below, if lethal force is justified, officers are taught to keep shooting until the threat is over. That is the Supreme Court precedent on this issue.
Correct. So you just realized you fucked yourself, right?
How?
Okay. So where in your quotation from Plumhoff does it say?
Gratitude with a 20. Thank you, King. If this chat was a restaurant, it'd be a Waffle House. With an expired liquor license where the chefs smoke in the kitchen and drink at work. You're not wrong. I'm going to keep drawing.
Okay.
Thank you for the super chat, King. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat. Super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. I parasocially love you. Thank you for being here.
Every bullet does not need to be analyzed under the Fourth Amendment for excessive force. Okay. That's the proposition that you claimed.
Okay.
So where does it say
hang on a sec. You are now trying to use debate pedophile tactics to get out of this. Okay.
That was your contention.
Show me a case. Don't give me that bullshit about show me the contention. Okay. It's very clear what the ruling says. Okay. If a police officer has authorization to use lethal force, they're allowed to continue to use lethal force until the threat is ended. Therefore, there isn't an individual justification required for each bullet. That's the precedent, okay? Rather than give me a fucking pedophile bullshit, why don't you quote some law at me? No, we're not going to slow down. Yeah. We're speeding up, bro. We're speeding up because you know that you're wrong about this. Okay, you know that you're wrong about this.
I know that I'm right. That's why I'm slowing down on Plumhoff.
No, you know that you're wrong, dude. You are wrong about this.
I read this case in law school.
All right, Chud's being a jerk. Let's be real. He's being a jerk. All right. If he keeps being a jerk over it, maybe we'll fast forward a little bit. But once again, I think that Pisco could be making a correct argument that within the context of evaluating each shot, like I said, with the example up north where the guy kept shooting for 20 seconds, where he was taking aim shots at a suspect that was already down. His contention was that the suspect still posed an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm because he was trying to get back up, which is why he was continuing to shoot. And yet no other officers were shooting, and he continued to sustain fire for like an additional 20 seconds. And we could actually Google. Yeah, as a matter of fact, somebody said, can we Google that? Let's Google it real quick. Let's Google the case. Police officer continued shooting case. Trial of formal Uvalde. That's not it. Uvalde. It might be lost to the algorithm, man. This thing was like 5 or 10 years ago. Former Officer Matthew Edward Hamilton is charged with manslaughter in the death of Joseph Thomas Lee Lopez, who was shot on the night of November 2021. I don't think that's it. If somebody can find the case, just describing it again, it was in the Rust Belt. It was a black gentleman. He was walking down the middle of the roadway. And basically all the cops lined up. He charged the line. He got shot. He was down on the ground, and they kept shooting him. And the one cop kept shooting for an additional like 20 seconds past every other law enforcement officer. That was the case. I don't know how it was decided. I don't know if he was charged. I don't know any of that stuff. But if anybody finds that case, let me know the name and I'll look it up. I'm going to keep drawing, though.
Cool, I know it better than you, and we're slowing it down.
No. We're not slowing it down because you're wrong. You're trying to slow it down because you know that you're wrong, and you're trying to come up with some little trick or tactic, some Jewish lawyer strategy, in order to circumvent the fact that I'm right. You were stuttering. I thought you wanted a serious debate. You were stuttering. I'm giving you a serious debate. You were stuttering when you first answered. You were stuttering when you first answered, bro, because you don't have an answer to this. Because you were wrong to say that each shot requires justification. That's what you claimed in your tweet. That's what you claimed in your tweet.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
And it's true.
Doesn't. Incorrect.
It's true. And it's true. And Plumhoff.
Thank you. It's Dub. This is my favorite Destiny waiting room. Parasocial Love King. Thank you for the chip.
Proves it, and I'm about to show you why. So let's stick on Plumhoff.
Okay, go on.
So the fact that SCOTUS states that it's reasonable to use force in the context of the fact pattern of Plumhoff means they're analyzing every bullet, right? The 15 bullets are all being analyzed, yes or no?
Okay, I'm not playing your fucking game, dude.
Correct.
I'm not playing your game.
Is the answer yes?
I'm not.
So the fact that they're,
I've heard about this, dude.
Analyzing
No. You're not getting me on this, Pisco. You're not going to get me with this. We came from the same fucking.
Dude, I gotta tell y'all a wild story. Somebody said Tyree Moorhead. No, this is Baltimore. This shoot was good all day. And sorry, once again, we're talking about serious topics this morning. So I apologize to anybody with a weaker stomach. You can come back a little bit later. We'll have something a little bit less serious. So what happened here? Bear in mind, guys, I was supposed to meet Tyree Moorhead in 2022. He was killed in 2023. So what happened, for those of you who don't know, Lauren Southern is a dissident right-wing documentarian, and I've worked with her a couple of times. And we went to Baltimore for a video shoot about violence, gun violence in America. And I forget what the name of the documentary was called, but it was sponsored by Tim Pool. So we work for a few days. We're running around Baltimore. We're seeing everybody riding dirt bikes and popping wheelies on ATVs and getting into gunfights. And we're talking to locals, and they're telling us how scary and crazy the West Baltimore is and South Baltimore is. And we're going into all the bad neighborhoods. And somebody actually says, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy. He's an anti-firearms activist called Tyree Moorhead." And so what Tyree Moorhead was doing in West Baltimore was he was running around and he was tagging, spray painting certain areas, and he was labeling them no shoot zones. So like no charge from the city, no planning from the city, no nothing. He was just spray painting areas, and he was saying this is a no shooting zone. And what was weird about it is that the community on and off actually accepted the territories being declared no shooting zones, where effectively, like gangbangers or whatever, actually engaged in less violence in those territories. And so as a result, Tyree Moorhead, kind of a schizophrenic guy, but he was kind of like valorized and covered in media as somebody who was in Baltimore, who genuinely cared about the community, who was trying to do something to reduce the violence. Well, and so he was kind of a crazy guy, though. So people were saying, oh, he's like a local fascination. You should go check him out. So we tried to coordinate meeting up with him, but we weren't able to make it happen by the end of the video shoot. And then a year after the video shoot, he gets killed by law enforcement. And I think he gets killed by law enforcement because he's like holding somebody hostage with a knife. And like he's actually either trying to stab or he's holding them hostage with a knife. And so a Baltimore police officer runs up to this guy and guns him down. And I'll tell you, the shooting of this guy was like less than 5 seconds. He had a knife. He was threatening he was like holding this person by the hair, and he had a knife in his hand. At that point, imminent threat of death or great bodily harm is easily articulable. And so as a result, this was not the case that I was talking about. Once again, if you have like an elapsed time for a police involved shooting that is less than 5 seconds, that cop's not getting charged and he's not going to jail. So thank you for bringing up a specific case. But Tyree Moorhead is not the guy I was talking about. And weirdly enough, I almost met Tyree Moorhead before he was killed. Weird small world.
rape dungeon, bro. You're not going to fucking get me on this. You said you need to have a self-defense rationale for these shots, pointing to shots 2 and 3.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
The Plumhoff rationale applies.
No. Under Plumhoff, if you're authorized to use force, you shoot until the threat is ended. Therefore, you don't need to justify each bullet fired.
No, but
it's that simple.
No.
You can disprove me immediately. You can disprove me immediately by showing case law that shows that an officer, as part of their analysis in regards to lethal force, okay, has had to account for each instance of shot being fired within one sort of overall force deployment, if that makes sense. You know, one use of lethal force.
I mean, the proposition for that is from Tennessee v. Gardner. It's from Plumhoff itself.
Stop. Tennessee versus Gardner. How is it from Tennessee versus Gardner? Because that relates to whether or not you're allowed to shoot a fleeing felon. How does that relate to Tennessee versus Gardner?
Because they analyzed the Fourth Amendment deadly force principles in that case, and it's one of the most important critical cases.
And why is it critical? Why is it critical? What's the reason it's critical?
Because it's one of the first times that SCOTUS has confronted the issue, and
what did they decide
where a lot
that
of the
was so
case law is
important?
developed.
No. What did they decide specifically that was so important?
There's a bunch of stuff that was very important.
No, there was what? No. There was.
Are you just trying to quiz me?
I'm trying to quiz you because you present yourself as a lawyer, but you don't know what you're talking about, and that's why you're fucking wriggling. You tell me what was the primary holding in Tennessee versus Gardner right now, without looking it up.
Yeah.
Go.
So, it is that if there is a significant threat to the public, if the officer perceives it from an objectively reasonable perspective, that the use of force is justified if necessary in response to the threat of serious bodily injury or death to the public or to the officers.
So what about that relates?
Under the Fourth Amendment.
Okay, so what about that relates to the justification for each bullet fired?
Yeah, it's their holding that the use of deadly force as against a person is a seizure under the Fourth Amendment, which must be analyzed. Correct. And of course, every seizure under the Fourth Amendment must be reasonable.
You can keep buying for time. You can keep buying for time. You can keep buying for time all you want. Explain to me. We're just gonna slow down. You know that you're fucked here, bro. You know that I fucking researched this, and you know that you're wrong, and you know that you're raped. That's why you're saying slow down. That's why you're stuttering. You're done. You're finished. Explain to me. No, very specific. You claim each shot needs individual justification.
Somebody said a Chavez guy from Houston. Unfortunately, I just Googled it. All those cops were reinstated. So, I mean, that's not the one I was thinking of, but thank you for giving me the case just to take a look at it.
You refer to Tennessee versus Garner. What about Tennessee versus Garner says that each individual bullet fired, as you stated, needs deadly force justification? Go.
Because Garner stands for the proposition that the application of deadly force against an individual is a seizure. Every bullet fired is a seizure against an individual.
No, it's not. That was contested. No, it's not. That's contested. That's contested by Plumhoff. That's contested by Plumhoff.
No,
it is contested by Plumhoff.
No,
it is absolutely contested by Plumhoff.
This is embarrassing
because it says it. No, it's not embarrassing. You're the one that's embarrassed. You're not answering my question. You're not answering my question. It's obvious, bro. Everyone can see it. You're stuttering. You don't know what you're talking about, and I do.
So I am answering your question.
Okay, go.
So Chud, what you asked basically, how is it possible that Garner stands for the proposition that every bullet must be justified? Well, the mere holding that the use of force is a seizure in this context is incorporated in the Fourth Amendment. And of course, if the use of deadly force is a seizure, and also
somebody says Alvin Cole, Wisconsin. That sounds like it.
Seizures must be reasonable under the Fourth Amendment. It means all applications of force must be reasonable under the Fourth Amendment, which means all uses of force must be justified, in which case all shots must be justified.
Okay.
It's just a logical entailment.
No, it's not. That is contested by Plymouth.
Okay, and I also feel like we're moving the ball here a little bit. Weirdly enough, I'm like with Chud in spirit, even though I think he's being a jerk. So once again, maybe I need to draw this out real quick. So every bullet being fired, and I'm not going to play any violent videos. I'm just going to describe it for you real quick. Let me save this commentary Moses Chud analogy, and then let me do like a new thing real quick. I know this is redundant, and I have a 3,000 IQ chat filled with Giga Chads and Giga Stacys, so you guys don't even need me to explain it. But I do feel like it needs to be drawn, because otherwise these people are just going to talk past each other, and it's not going to do anything. So bullet picture. Well, let's see if there's a picture of a bullet. Okay, here we go. Here's a picture of a bullet. So I think that they're talking past each other more than this is actually an object in contention. Okay. So what I'm saying and what I think Chud is saying, as a matter of fact, let's just use the Minnesota shooting in as an example. I think there were 3 rounds fired. Let's just say there were 4 rounds fired just in case. Okay. But I think there were 3 rounds fired. So what I think Pisco is saying by inference, you can say that this is not what he's saying, but I think this is what's implied by saying that each round must be justified. Every time a cop pulls the trigger, each individual shot must be evaluated as an individual action / seizure, and therefore each round can be ruled justified, unjustified, based on its context. Okay? And I think that's what he's saying. And I actually don't have real beef with it necessarily, with it being articulated that way. However, I think what people hear, because they're insert ableist slur here, since we have nice people in our chat, I think what they hear is that you actually, when the shoot team shows up, they actually take a look at every single bullet, when it's fired, what it's aimed at, what it hits, the time elapsed since the decide to engage in deadly force, and whether or not that decision to engage in deadly force was justified. Okay? Whereas what Chud and I are saying is that, let me delete this thing right here and let me say these things. I don't even necessarily know if these statements are mutually contradictory. I don't even know if what I'm about to say is contradicting what Pisco is saying. So let me just write it out so it's clear, because they're going to loop, obviously, because it's a contentious debate and they think that they have something that's real in contention. But I'm going to try to articulate it so maybe we could listen to them loop a couple of times and then maybe move it forward if they, to a next point, if they just get wrapped up on this point. So in use of force scenarios, law enforcement is trained to fire until the threat is gone, which means that particularly in short instances, bullets will be treated as working off the same info and context and can be judged as a group. And this particularly applies to the ICE shooting, because no offense, I know I love you guys, just know that I parasocially love you before I say the next mean thing that I'm going to say, is that what people who are hearing Pisco argue is that the guy is on the verge of being struck by the vehicle. He fires into the windshield. He fires into the side of the vehicle. He fires into the side of the vehicle. And so they're arguing that the first shot, second shot, and third shot are not justified. But they're particularly arguing that even if the first shot was justified, the second and third shot are obviously not justified because the vehicle has already passed the ICE agent. But that's not how violence works. There's a action-reaction gap, and there's not a choice that's being made, a conscious choice that's being made with each individual shot fired. What's happening is the ICE agent sees a vehicle coming towards him. He decides that it meets a deadly force threshold. He's going to pull and fire. And so within that, you're talking about an elapsed time frame of maybe a couple of seconds. All 3 of those shots are going to, because they're right next to each other, they're going to be treated as a class of action. Because by the time he pulls the first trigger, because of the way that human physiology and psychology works, he's already pulling the second and the third. Those are already on the way out. Okay. There is not a shot going off. And then he's like, oh, well, now she's passed me. Therefore, I can stop the second and the third. No, the first, second, and third are contextually all the same because they're all based off of the same calculation and they're all within the context of the same action reaction gap. Now, what I'm also going to say, because I think this is true of both cases, I'm going to label this like Pisco and I'm going to label this Chud. Because once again, I don't even know if these arguments are mutually contradictory. They might not be mutually contradictory. Let me add one other thing. So time, okay. Let me take this let me take this out here and put this down here because this applies regardless of whether or not you take Chud's position, regardless of whether or not you take Pisco's position in reference to the shooting. Let me finish up my drawing real quick. My apologies for the dead air. I'm just cleaning up the third thing because this applies regardless of whether or not you lean more towards Pisco's description or you lean towards Chud's description, which once again, I don't think are mutually contradictory. This is still true after the elapsed time. So elapsed time from perception of threat of great bodily harm or deadly, or what is it? Imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. Okay, so it's death. Elapsed time from perception of threat of great bodily harm or death. The longer the time to observe, orient, direct, and act / react, the harsher the judgment of each round fired. Now, I might have to describe this a little bit for you guys. So let's say that you perceive an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. If you have those first 3 or 4 shots, you're probably Gucci because you're still interacting with the perception of imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. But as time elapses where the person either falls or doesn't fall or dies or doesn't die or throws their weapon away or doesn't throw their weapon away, judgment becomes more harsh. Because if you have somebody who gets shot and you shoot him 3 or 4 times, but then they throw their weapon away and then like another 5 seconds elapse or 10 seconds elapse, and then you shoot him after that, then those bullets are going to be judged more harshly than the perception of imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. And you are going to have a momentary, reasonable reason why you pulled those additional shots. I think this makes sense. I think it should be obvious to a lot of people. And yet we're having a fight about it. And I've argued with soy people in my chat about this description of events. And so I want you to evaluate what I've said. If you disagree with me, I want you to take a look at what I've written and specifically articulate what you think I got wrong. Because I don't think that there's anything wrong in this. I think Chud is being not good faith, but he's forwarding an earnest and intellectually honest argument. I think Pisco is as well. And I don't think they're mutually contradictory, but I want to hear why Chud is wrong from the soy libs, because I do not think Chud is wrong. I'm going to give them 3 to 5 minutes in order to loop on the topic. And then if they loop like too many times, then I'm going to move on. Quick chill, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them. We're at a 5 out of 10 on the goal. We have another hour left on the goal. The goal is 10 super chats over the course of 2 hours. I do parasocially love you guys, and I want to thank everybody who's donated so far. Anonymous Chatter donated for 20 for Grassroots. Forgot to mention the pile behind the dumpster of our Waffle House. Yep. But thank you, Anonymous. It's Dubois. That sounds like it's W, but it sounds like the way that people used to pronounce W. But it sounds like you combine that with an orc. So it's like Dubois. So thank you for your chip. Grassroots, thank you for the 20. Anonymous Chatter, thank you for the 5. From the Ashes, thank you for the 5. From the Ashes with the 2. Vazraka with the membership. Anonymous Chatter with the 10. Fell Runner with the 2. Anonymous Chatter with the 20. Thank you, kings and queens. Let's continue with the content.
I'll read it again. Okay? Because what Plumhoff says is essentially, to put it simply, because you clearly don't know, shoot until the trigger goes click. If it is determined that force is permissible, you can shoot until the trigger goes click, okay? And as long as the threat has not dynamically changed within that time. Let me give you an example, okay? Because I clearly know more than this about you. If you shoot someone 5 times and they fall to the floor and they're incapacitated, right? That's likely fine. But if you then went up and fired a 6th shot, the 6th shot would be a separate instance of force because it's, substantively after the first 5 shots, and that would likely be considered excessive, right? That's what it's referring.
Although in warfare, I do recommend dead checking. That's kind of a meme. That's a video game meme, mostly. But also, if we're ever in like a real no BS war, maybe dead check.
But as in this case, if 3 bullets are fired, I'm not. If 3 bullets are fired in 1 second, if 3 bullets,
no, he's not making stuff up. That's actually this is my frustration with Pisco. He's not making stuff up. Chud is not wrong. As a matter of fact, I think what they're saying is not mutually exclusive.
Classified in 1 second, okay, it is highly unlikely that would be classified.
They're all analyzed.
No, okay. They might be analyzed for... No, listen. They might be analyzed for
you
reports.
concede they're analyzed.
No, I'm not conceding. No, dude, you are so... Bro, I was warned about you, bro. Dude, you and I both know that you're wrong. That's what's so funny about this. You know that you're wrong. You know that you're wrong, bro. You know that you're wrong. They might be analyzed for a police report, but not legally. From a legal perspective, Plumhoff sets the precedent that you can fire until the trigger goes click. Okay?
No, it's literally opposite. So Plumhoff is holding that it's reasonable under the circumstances to fire that many shots. It's not saying we don't analyze the shots. It's saying we analyze them.
You're
and we
trying
assess
to
them as
find some
reasonable.
little trick because your original claim. Your original claim was you need to have a self-defense rationale for those shots. That's not true because you.
Yeah. Christina, I actually think this is a good faith question, and a lot of my chat doesn't like my answer. So every bullet has a story. What would be an example of the bullet shot at Renee Good? So I think that if you are trying to evaluate the bullets on an individual, like objective reasonableness standard, then the first bullet could potentially be justified under the threat of imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. But then the second and third get more difficult to justify as imminent threat or death or great bodily harm because they were taken at angles that suggest that the vehicle was already past the person being struck by the vehicle, right? So from an individual bullet analysis, which I think Pisco is advocating for, and I think that that's what you're poking at, the second and third shot get really hard to justify. However, what happens, what I'm telling you, and Jeb Tam brought this up, and it's something I was trained on, and et cetera, is like the action reaction gap is something that's real. So anybody who's been in a real adrenaline out scenario, you've been in a bar fight, you've been in a fist fight, you've been in a gun fight, you've been in a knife fight, you've had a abusive person abuse you, you've been assaulted either physically, sexually, socially, whatever. I think you guys can all attest to the fact that simultaneously, time seems to slow down, but I've been in those scenarios and time does not actually slow down. Your perception of things keep up. And so as an example, I've told people about this story before. I had a naked guy in red sneakers charge me while I had a gun pointed at his chest. And my brain kicked into what I think a lot of people refer to as time dilation, where simultaneously time was faster and slower. And realistically, like studying the physiology and the biology of somebody in one of those actions, one of the things that they brought up is that in an adrenaline out situation, your adrenaline will effectively like overwhelm your body with blood pressure effectively. And people will oftentimes get tunnel vision where their eyeballs are focusing on the individual levels of threat. They'll focus on the aspect of threat, but then not just that, your eyeballs click into overdrive where it's effectively the shutter speed gets increased on a high definition, slow motion camera. So it's not that time isn't unfolding at the same speed. It's that your perception is simultaneously decreased because of tunnel vision and adrenaline, but it's also increased where what you're perceiving within what you're looking at is increased because of the increased shutter speed of your mind's eye taking more pictures more quickly. And so when this guy is in this scenario, if he was under the same adrenaline time dilation effect that people experience under extreme duress, then probably what happened was if you took the camera the body camera and or cell phone footage, then shrink his perception down 70% because of adrenaline, to the point that if he was looking at the person, that is probably all they saw. They only saw 30% of what was going on. Then not just that, the instinct to pull in fire is a moment, but second and third shots all elapse in under a second or two. And so as a result, those are all going to be evaluated as a part of the same mental and physiological calculation. And that's what Chud is saying in my perception. So that's where I feel like it's unfair for people who say each round needs to be justified. Yes, that's true. But if you take the physiological action reaction gap and the perceptions of somebody in a high stress scenario, then these are going to be treated, especially since they elapsed in such a short time, they're going to be treated as a solitary act. So anyways.
Need one self-defense rationale for all 3 bullets based on Plumhoff and what it says. It's that simple.
So first off,
and you're wrong. Go.
So first off, Plumhoff is not just a self-defense rationale. It's a defensive public rationale. And even putting that aside, Plumhoff isn't saying you don't analyze those shots. What Plumhoff is saying is we've analyzed those shots.
I'll give them a second to loop.
And we find them to be reasonable. That's why it's so preposterous you're citing it, right? Plumhoff is analyzing every one of the shots. And you're claiming that it's standing for the proposition that you don't analyze the shots.
If lethal force is justified, officers are taught to keep shooting until the threat is over. That is what
you
they
think that's responsive to what I just said? You're like you're like Pearl in that debate she just had.
I do think they're talking past each other a little bit.
Okay.
What is alimony? What is alimony?
Because you want to throw some fucking red meat to the audience when I heard you got fucking gaped, bro. Didn't you officially lose your fucking debate? Is that because you were sick then too? You're wrong about this. It's that.
That was mean. That was mean. For those of you who don't know, Pisco debated dear friend of the channel, Ryan Mulally. I know a lot of my chat hates Ryan Mulally, but they went to World War debate in Atlantic City, and they had a podium-style debate. And what I would say is that morally, I'm with Pisco. To what end do we take the interpretations of the 14th Amendment from, was it the 14th Amendment? I think it was the 14th Amendment. To what degree do we take the contemporaneous, meaning same time? I already know you guys know contemporaneous because you guys are my chat and you have 3,000 IQ and you're brilliant and you're gigastats and gigachads and gigastacies. But contemporaneous arguments from the 19th century were that illegal immigrants were not covered under the 14th Amendment, and that you had to have a parent. It was like somebody who helped write the bill say that in order to be considered under the jurisdiction thereof, then you had to have a parent that was under the complete jurisdiction of the United States of America. And they also say that in reference to, there was a Chinese immigrant who was born in the United States, but his parents were not diplomats. They were just like people with valid work visas. They were ruled as having, or the person born was ruled as being a citizen because their parents during their immigration status were under the complete jurisdiction of the United States. Now, what Pisco argued, which I want to agree with, but obviously is tough argumentatively, and I did see this in chat, which I liked, was that, well, if you look at the way that the 14th Amendment is phrased, it actually makes no specific reference to the parentage of the person born in the United States. And if they wanted that to be the law of the land, they shouldn't have just like written that in op-eds. They should have put that within the amendment itself. And so at that point, I agree with that. They wrote the amendment poorly if they wanted to exclude illegal immigrants. And then not just that, but like, what harm are we trying to prevent? Right? Like, what harm of people coming to the United States because they think it's a good place to live, because they want economic opportunity, because they want educational opportunity, because they want to make the world a better place, because they want a better life for their children? What harm are we preventing by having immigrants come to the United States because they want a materially better life? And if we made integration a key part of our public education system, why is that not sufficient for basically creating a new generation of patriotic Americans? So I thought Ryan did a good job. I thought Pisco did not as good of a job. I want to agree with Pisco more. and I do morally, but I also think that Ryan's arguments were valid and potentially sound. Anyways, back to it.
Simple,
they did a poll of the MAGA audience,
Pisco,
and I lost the MAGA poll.
Pisco, answer this question alone, okay? It's your turn to answer a fucking question.
All I've been doing is answering your questions.
Cite me relevant case law.
Xena says, what about after the shooting? Did they get her medical attention promptly? Honestly, man, if somebody's skull is split open and they don't have a pulse, medical attention kind of becomes secondary compared to treating it as a shooting scene. There's only certain medical things that you can recover from, and having your head blown open is not one of them.
Where it's a similar circumstance, multiple bullets fired within a matter of seconds, and that has been determinant on whether or not force is reasonable.
I don't have a on-point fact pattern from the perspective of,
So you don't have any relevant case law. So just to be clear, precedent is against you. As much as you say otherwise, you're wrong.
No,
you don't have any relevant information to back up the idea that each individual bullet gets analyzed.
Wait, no. That I just proved and
it doesn't exist. It's because it doesn't exist.
Wait.
No, you didn't.
That's
you can say you don't put on me as much as you want, bro. It's not fucking working, dude. People can see through you. You're stuttering. You're weak. You haven't got any fucking examples, okay? You will not win this war, dude. You will not win. You know that you're fucking wrong. You know you've been speaking out of school, okay? You know that you don't know as much about self-defense as you claim to.
Why don't we just have a debate?
Because I'm fucking sick of people saying things that aren't true.
You're sick now.
Yeah, I'm sick. Yeah, people are saying things that aren't true. Okay, and then they come on and they can't back it up, and you're using all these weasel tactics.
Remember when Logan Paul?
I know that you're bullshit because I've read about this.
Remember when Logan Paul boxed out like one guy who like pretty much gave up the fight by like doing illegal stuff in the boxing arena? I forget. And like, he went after his girl or whatever. You're kind of that guy. You're just like doing a DQ right now and just like making the conversation impossible because you know you're gonna get blown the fuck out.
Yeah, dude, conservative liberalism and beef supreme. You've been with me for the entire week, guys. You've watched the entire content. So I don't know why I have to answer this question, but since it's contextually relevant, I'm going to address it. So conservative liberalism says, what do you think of the odds of a cop knowing he can justify a shooting by his position, also knowing he can justify a killing by continuing to pull the trigger? Big think. And then that's not quite the same question, but who is it? Where's the other guy? Beef Supreme, as told by ex-cops, the fact is he is not following training or policy will also be used against him. He can't fall back on training in this case. So what's interesting, this is actually an interesting point that you guys are bringing up. You're asking, can officer cause jeopardy be used in order to justify a shooting? And can an officer use the context of officer cause jeopardy in order to kill someone? And I think the answer is yes. I actually have a specific story, and it's kind of difficult to go for. But basically, there was my buddy who I love, excellent cop, excellent human being, love him to death, Mr. Jake. If Jake is listening to my VODs or watching live, then I love you, Jake, and I think you're one of the best human beings who was ever put on this planet. But in reference to Jake was on a call with a suicidal guy with a gun. And the suicidal guy with a gun was in the backyard and had a shotgun, and he was going to kill himself, but allegedly he had passed out from drugs. And basically they were approaching the guy, and then Jake's partner, not really his partner, but his zone partner, said that the guy like moved the gun on him, and then he blasted him away. Like the cop blasted the guy away with the shotgun. Now, Jake, it was dark. The body camera was not able to pick up the area. I'm trying to think of what else. It was dark. Body camera wasn't able to pick up anything. There were no other witnesses. There was just the two people there. And so, but he wrestled with that for a long time because he didn't see the guy make a furtive gesture. And so as a result, he's like, what is within the realm of possibility that this guy moved and I just didn't see it? What's within the realm of possibility of it being dark and therefore I didn't see it? But I really don't think I saw a furtive gesture. Was my zone partner being an aggressive a-hole and used this as a pretext? And he really wrestled with that shoot for a long time because he didn't know whether or not it was justified. And he basically knew that, suicidal guy with a gun, furtive gesture claimed by a cop, that's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And yeah, so can cops, let's assume the most charitable thing, it's a good shoot. You have a firearm, you're threatening to kill yourself, you're threatening to kill other people, you're intoxicated out of your mind, you make a furtive gesture with a firearm, you're going to be killed, right? It's just the nature of the beast. You're posing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm to yourself and others. Well, yourself might not be so relevant, but you're posing an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm to others, which is why you're being killed. No, but let's take the ultra uncharitable read, which is effectively by approaching a suicidal person with a gun, you're already in jeopardy, right? But that's the nature of the job. Cops are expected to do dangerous shit all the time. But then let's say, I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying that let's say hypothetically that there was a dangerous situation and a cop just wanted to kill someone because he felt like, you know, I want to know what it's like. I want to know what it's like to kill someone. Could they use the jeopardy that they are currently in order to justify a bad shoot, pretending it was a good shoot? And I think the answer is yes. And I think that's scary. I think it should be scary to members of the public. I think it should be scary to law enforcement officers, because while it might be rare, I think it's entirely possible that there could be murderers and bullies on the job who are using the job as a pretext to look for someone that they could kill. So I think that should freak everyone the fuck out. Yeah. Anyways, kind of a heavy topic. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats. If you got them, memberships, if you got them, my parasocial love you. Thank you for being here. Your Giga Chats and Giga Stacy's for being here. Let's continue.
Okay, explain to me how you blow me the fuck out. Explain to me. Explain to me how each bullet is going to be analyzed in this shooting. Go.
You started with the notion that it's possible for you to to sandbag me with cases as though I haven't heard of Plumhoff or whatever, and as though that Plumhoff stands for the proposition that you don't analyze.
First, he says, have you considered that Chud speaks loudly, uses slurs, and makes fun of DGG? I have.
Every shot, when what Plumhoff was doing in responding to the lawsuit by petitioner was specifically to analyze their contention that each of the shots wasn't justified. And what Plumhoff stands for is you analyze them, right? Plumhoff is holding they're reasonable. It's not holding you don't.
I'm going to fast forward 5 or 10 minutes because I think that the subject is what's relevant here. The people who are evaluating the shooting are the people who can evaluate each bullet. The person doing the shooting typically cannot evaluate each trigger pull and should not be reasonably expected to do so. So there, from the police officer's perspective, a class of shots can elapse within 1 or 2 seconds. And all of those, from a law enforcement officer's perspective, are going to be judged as a single action. But from a state attorney or a shoot team's perspective, they're going to be evaluating each shot fired to see if it stands the scrutiny of objective reasonableness. So even if they're looping, I'm going to fast forward 5 or 10 minutes because, you know, whatever. Hopefully they move to a different point.
So the reason is because I'm like a teacher right now. I'm trying to reach these kids.
Have you seen Marvel movies? Have you seen Marvel movies, bro?
That's a Bosch deep cut reference. I'm gonna get some water. I'll be right back. Enjoy the psychic damage.
I'm trying to reach you.
Do you think Carl Rittenhouse should have submitted to the mob? What do you reckon? I've seen a Marvel movie where that happens. You get that one?
Yeah,
that one?
I don't know what you're talking about. What the fuck are you talking about?
What are you talking about referencing movies? Why are you not citing law? What you went from Chauvin? I'm trying to go back to Chauvin. Explain. Go back to Chauvin. I don't care about movies. If I wanted to learn about movies, I'd go to a fucking movie review site or watch UFAP. Talk to me about Chauvin.
If you're gonna be snarky, I'm gonna be snarky back. And the reason I'm bringing up Chauvin isn't to I don't know, mind fuck you. It's because I think you're low IQ, and I'm trying to bring up.
I'm not mind fucked.
I'm trying to bring up cases that are
wrong on Chauvin for the comparison. I'm trying to, and anyone that knows about this knows that I'm trying right, because it's an insane comparison. You thought you'd fucking roll me like you did with Hutch. Hutch is a fucking retard, bro, and didn't look into it. But I did, and you're full of shit,
What the fuck are you talking about?
You're full of shit,
Hutch is my boy. Don't talk shit about Hutch. Don't talk shit about Hutch.
Too late, I did. Seriously. He's a fucking retard. Continue.
Why would you say that? That's fucked up. Anyway, the reason I brought up the Chauvin case wasn't to say that it's the same fucking case. It's for the discrete point that every use of force needs to be analyzed across all of its application. That's what they were doing in the Chauvin case. They were analyzing the use of force across the entirety of the application of force. I'm not citing it for anything else. It's just an evocative example that low IQ people can understand because the case is famous.
And one of the reasons, right, it's likely that wasn't considered reasonable is because it happened over 7 minutes and there was multiple inputs of information that added to the totality of circumstances that undermined Chauvin's case. This happened.
No, but I'm not citing
in 1 second, and it's got the precedent of split-second decisions. Okay, the court accounts for that when they're assessing totality of circumstances.
No, of course, I'm not citing it for the proposition that it's on all fours with this case. I'm just citing it for the proposition that the application of force is justified every time it's applied. You don't stop analyzing it just because in a previous second it may have been justified, even assuming it.
Okay, I think this gets back to object subject. I'm going to fast forward a little bit further. See if they're... Oh, okay. Nice. They're breaking down the video. That's cool. Let's check that out.
This is a fucked up thing that happened, okay? Holy fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Okay. You want me to unmute? I'll unmute.
Yep, sure.
I would argue this is officer cause jeopardy right here. Walking in front of a running motor vehicle of a stranger you do not know when you know that you might have to detain this person. So as a law enforcement officer who was already dragged once and allegedly got a dozen stitches as a result of this, and also, who was it? Wick presented either like DHS or some law enforcement policy that was effectively stating explicitly, do not stand in front of a running vehicle. Now, I don't know where he got that. I don't know if it's photoshopped. I don't know if it's on the DHS website. Let's just presume it's DHS policy. At this point, by walking in front of a running vehicle with the phone, he's still conducting lawful law enforcement operations, which is documenting a person who you might have to detain. There's no problems with that. But he arguably could be in for a heap of trouble of officer cause jeopardy, where he's already knowingly, arguably, because he probably signs the policy, arguably knowingly violating policy, presuming that Wick was telling the truth.
I'm not mad at you.
That's the first point of relevance here.
Yeah.
For demeanor. I think it's I don't think it's dispositive, by which I don't think it resolves the case.
Okay, before we do this, can you just remind me of the 3 gram factors?
It's not a test like that. It's not a 3 gram test. It's a morass test. It's like a like a Gestalt test.
Okay, you're a bit off the mark there, because the 3 gram factors tend to be the most important factors when analyzing these. Well, just tell me what they are. If you know, you must know them, so just tell me what they are.
No, there's no such thing as the 3 gram factors. I'm telling you, the court specifically rejected that kind of distillation of the test. The test is objective reasonableness.
So you're saying there's no such thing as the 3 gram factors? But it's this correctly.
I'm saying that it's a misnomer to think that it's like a 3-part test.
No, wait a second. You're misunderstanding. I'm not saying it is a 3-part test, i.e. those are the only 3 things you can look at, right?
Yeah.
But they are specifically cited in the precedent as 3 things to consider alongside other things. So can you just tell me what they are?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you're referencing. It's possible that the reference relates to, reasonable necessity, the use of force, whether or not there's a threat of imminent serious bodily injury or death.
Are you reading this, by the way? Are you reading this?
No, my hands are right here. I'm looking at my chat.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're getting it from your chat. Got it. Okay, interesting. Oh, interesting. You're getting it from your chat.
I don't know if I don't even know if I'm right.
You're getting it from your chat, bro. It's so obvious, bro. Okay, I can tell you. I can tell. It's okay. You clearly don't know. Okay, you clearly don't know. I'll read it to you. Okay, I've got it here,
not
bro.
Like the 3 sacred factors. That's not.
No. Okay, I didn't say there were 3 sacred factors, but your
Baby Seal Club says, I think any jury will find him guilty of murder or murder 3 more likely. I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. I'm going to let them continue to break this down, but I mean, we've covered this a ton in the past week, which is effectively like you have to break it apart. Tactics, policy, legality, morality. Okay. These are 4 parallel but separate things. So I have good tactics, good officer safety. I think while I was engaged in the service, I think I routinely did have above average officer safety. But the truth is, in adrenaline out moments, you get lackadaisical, you get a little crazy, you do something dangerous sometimes. Sometimes you do something stupid and dangerous. I'll share this really briefly. My partner and I went to a kidnapping scene. Okay. Doors busted open. Call is woman called into 911, was heard struggling on the phone. And also, basically like, we don't know what's going on. And she has a beef with her ex-husband. Okay. Well, I see a door ajar when I pull up on the scene, and I'm like, I need another unit to clear this shit. Right. Because we just basically got like a call, sounds of a disturbance, and a hang up, and she's beefing with her ex-husband. Right. So I wait for another unit and we go clear. And let's just say that the scene appears staged. The reason why it appears staged is because as we're going up, if you were trying to trash somebody's house, you're not going to grab their picture and put it on the ground. You're going to grab their picture and you're going to fling it across the room and smash it against the wall. And so basically, like, there were pictures that were on the hallway because it's stairways going up to like a second level condo, townhome, apartment, whatever you want to call it. And the pictures were taken off the wall and placed on the steps. And I'm like, that's fishy as a motherfucker, but I have to treat it like it's real until we figure it out. So we go up there. We check that we're clearing out the common area. Common area is clear. Couch cushions are flipped. Everything else is flipped, all that kind of stuff, but still flipped in a weird way. Go into the bedroom. We clear the bedroom. And then we actually find her chained to handcuffed to her bed. Not in a sexy way, in a very non-sexy way. But realistically, it was like kids' handcuffs with like latches on the side that they were still metal, but they were kids' handcuffs with latches on the side so you could let yourself out. That was kind of weird. And then we go to clear the bathroom and the closet. Well, what happens is I go to clear the closet while my partner goes to clear the bathroom. He's clearing the bathroom, but we had split while we were clearing. And he walked back from the bathroom to go clear the closet. And then I come out of the closet in clippable moment right there. I come out of the closet and I basically bump into his gun. And we were moving so fast under the perception of a potential violent threat. Maybe we're about to catch a kidnapper in this house. And the reason why I put myself in front of my partner's gun, and reasonably, if he was startled, he could have shot me in the guts. Luckily, it probably would have hit my soft armor. But reasonably, he could have shot me if he came around the corner and I startled the fuck out of him and he thought I was the kidnapper. And I'm lucky that he didn't pull the trigger. But that's the kind of thing where like special forces, infantry, law enforcement, and all that kind of stuff, they train because that's the kind of crazy shit that happens under adrenaline. That's the kind of crazy shit that happens when you're in a high stakes scenario and you're betting your life on how you conduct yourself physically in moments that elapse within a couple of seconds. And so I made a mistake and I almost got shot because of that mistake. So anyway, so like, I think my beef with the ICE agent is not that he walked in front of the vehicle, because stupid cops do stupid shit all the time. I think my beef is that he did it twice when he knew that there was a stronger than average reason that she might flee. And he's already been dragged by a car, so he should know better. And allegedly, it was departmental policy to not walk in front of running vehicles. Still need to verify that fact. But that's another reason why I'm, let's just call it critical of the officer involved.
Okay. Something, and you're referencing something about her demeanor.
I'm not quoting anything.
No, sorry. You're referencing her demeanor, okay? Now, the totality of circumstances evaluation could include demeanor. I don't disagree with that.
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
But then I'm questioning you about the Graham factors, and you clearly don't know what they are. And the Graham factors, right, a very important factor.
Hold on, sorry. Josh CFC says something I disagree with. I feel like, quote unquote, nature of the job only applies when a cop does the shooting. When they shoot out of fear, that kind of makes the statement meaningless. But I don't know what you're talking about. Are you saying that an emotion of fear should not be present at the time of a shooting? because I'm just going to tell you, people are afraid all the time. The people in hardcore communities are afraid all the time. Cops who work those hardcore communities all the time are afraid. They're just brave. That's why people valorize law enforcement, because let's face it, 99% of us in this chat right now, we're going to wake up, we're going to go to a job tomorrow where there is a strong chance that we are not going to be killed while doing our job, right? Whereas if you're a cop who works in West Baltimore, you know that it's entirely possible that you could get killed through the course of the job. And not only do you know that it's possible that you could get killed through the course of the job, there's people who have been killed recently. In 2021, there was a female law enforcement officer in West Baltimore who was ambushed in her vehicle and she was killed. So she was just doing her paperwork on the side of the road, chilling. And then some dude just walked up to the side of the window and blasted her, right? So you know that it's rare. It's rare. There's probably 100 cops who work West Baltimore. But she knew that the risk was rare. She didn't think it was going to happen to her. She didn't think it was happening to her until she was taking rounds to the face. And she probably didn't even know what was happening by the time she was dead. So you know that you're volunteering for that risk. And then not only are you volunteering for that risk, you're also seeing the outcomes of other people's criminal behavior. You're seeing people who are killed or injured in traffic homicides. You're seeing people who are killed or injured in homicides. You know what it looks like to be grievously bodily harmed or killed, because those are the things that you respond to as a law enforcement officer. So anyways, I think you guys don't give enough. You guys are better than average. But I think the average person in the public does not give credit for what it's truly like on an individual level to work this shit. Christian Blair says, you talked to Destiny about a stochastic rhetoric, right? You plan to include it in your next Miami Live convo? I don't know. I feel like he won the doxing war, right? Totally immoral, but he won. So what do you want me to say about it? Baby Seal Club, I'll move on after this, but what does the ICE agent's comments after the shooting say about his state of mind, if anything? You'd have to tell me. I haven't seen them.
Because they're what the court would tend to weight, and they're referenced specifically in the precedent that's set.
Okay.
Right.
Congratulations.
Okay.
I don't know what that was about. Are you like...
Well, clearly, I don't know well, you're talking about this and you don't know some of the fundamentals. That's what I'm saying. And it's embarrassing.
No, it's people's like inaccurate perceptions that there's like a X factor test.
I never wait. You're misrepresenting my position. I mean, I can't be honest. Okay. I thought you were a good faith guy. You're misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm saying the grand factors exist. Okay, they're referenced all across the fucking US in terms of the law enforcement training, even, which is separate to the law, right? Because they're the three most important things they tend to look at. You can look at anything as a totality of circumstances, and in fact, the recent Supreme Court precedent in 2025. Reaffirm the totality of circumstances analysis. Yeah. But the three grand factors are the crucial.
Miradol says ICE officers are notoriously badly trained. That could be true, but this guy's a 10-year veteran of the force. So he should have engaged in these operations before. I think they said that he'd been dragged by a vehicle before. So him doing this is psycho. And then also if he's violating policy, I hate to say it. Listen, the way that police department policy works is you go over your policy in field training and you have to initial each part of the policy and then sign the page. I mean, at least that's what we did at the city level. But we were told as cops, hey, like, we're going to go over the policy and we're going to train you right. But basically, if you F up the policy, if the administration likes you, they'll sweep for you and they'll give you excuses for why you violated policy in order to serve the law better. Whereas if the administration hates you and they want to get rid of you, they'll use your violation of policy in order to burn you. So, yeah, poor training probably contributed to this, but a 10-year veteran shouldn't be poorly trained.
Ones that tend to make or break cases, okay?
Where is that? In virtue of what is that the fact?
Well, let me read the thing to you, okay?
Wait, no, is this AI in virtue of what?
It's the actual law. It's the case, the Supreme Court decision.
It's not AI. It's just tell me it's not AI.
No, it's not AI.
Yeah, Timothy Douglas, I'll do a drawing for you.
You know, AI is not good for looking at this. This is the actual wording of the Supreme Court decision I'm about to read to you.
All right, go for it.
Okay. So it's it says, Because the test of
Wait,
reasonableness.
from what says? Sorry. What says?
Do you want me to? Okay, I can read the whole thing. It's just a bit more laborious.
No. I want to know what the thing is.
Graham versus Connor 1989 that set the precedent for objective reasonableness, which is about, which introduces the totality of circumstances broadly. Yeah. Okay. Determining whether the force used to be effective, a particular seizure is determining whether the force used to be effective in a particular seizure is reasonable under the Fourth Amendment requires a careful balancing of the nature and quality of the intrusion on the individual's Fourth Amendment interests against the countervailing government interests at stake. There's a bunch of quotations here. I don't know if you need that, but continuing on, I can send this to you if you'd like as well. Our Fourth Amendment.
Graham versus Connor.
Okay, well, you don't know the Graham factors, so you don't really know it that well.
Well, I don't know them distilled like that, but I know the case.
We know the case, but you've not researched this because the Graham factors are one of the things you undoubtedly find in research about this because it is fundamental to discussing use of force. And you because you don't know.
Keep reading your Graham factors. Where does it say the Graham factors are the most important?
You wanted me to read all of it? Not all of it, but this part I'll read all of it. Our Fourth Amendment jurisprudence has long recognized that the right to make an arrest or investigatory stop necessarily carries with it the right to use some degree of physical coercion of threat thereof to effect it. See Terry versus Ohio. Because the test of reasonableness under the Fourth Amendment is not capable of precise definition or application.
Oh, weird. It sounds like you're saying there's no mechanical application.
I never said no.
Okay, exactly. Cool.
But listen. However, right, its proper application requires careful attention to the facts and circumstances of each particular case, including the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of the officers or others, and whether he is actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. Those are the Graham factors. Those tend to be the most important ones. But you can look at anything in totality of circumstances if you want to. You can make an argument, right?
Okay. No, I'm asking for the justification that the Graham factors are the most important factors in all these cases.
Okay. Well, where does that establish? Okay. I'm not saying they're the most important factors in every case.
You literally
because when you look at case law on this, when you look at case law on this, right, what it tends to come down to, right, is these three factors are the things that they look at like more than any other, but you can use any in your presentation of this. So you could talk about her demeanor. That could come into this. Her demeanor would weigh in her favor, right? I agree with that. Yeah. But then if they're looking at it and they're like, right, we're weighing up her demeanor. So, for example, if someone had a good demeanor, but they pulled out a gun, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but
the demeanor would work. The demeanor would work. The demeanor would work.
The demeanor.
Sorry, go on.
Wait, what you're categorizing as the Graham factors, her demeanor plays into one of them, right?
No.
The notion of whether she's an
what I'm saying
an immediate threat to the safety of the. Wait, let me finish my fucking thought, bitch.
Go on.
Whether or not she has a particular demeanor is relevant to an analysis about whether the officer reasonably apprehends an immediate threat. And so you're acting as though, her demeanor is in isolation of what you're characterizing as the Graham factors.
No, you're totally misrepresenting what I'm saying, actually. You're totally misrepresenting what I'm saying. I'm saying because you know that you're fucking raped, dude. And unless there's some fucking libtard, Pisco, DGG, a fucking retard in chat, everyone knows I'm correct about this, okay? Her demeanor is potentially relevant as a totality of circumstances analysis. Okay,
that's all I'm saying. I didn't say anything more.
Okay, but
I even said
but listen,
it's not dispositive.
The reason the Graham factors tend to be more crucial is because to you, right, what is more indicative of a reasonableness of using force? Analysis of a demeanor or analysis of them pulling a gun out on you?
I think pulling a gun out would be more important than demeanor.
Right. So you agree then that these factors that they put in the case are likely to be more important than whatever fucking half-baked activist retard argument you've made up about demeanor, which is possible.
I think that
but it's likely to be outweighed by the other factors presented in the case, isn't it?
No, I say it's your false assumption that her demeanor doesn't play into the analysis of whether she's a threat.
I never said the demeanor doesn't play in. Wait.
So then
when did I say? When did I say her demeanor?
How are you removing it?
When did I say her demeanor doesn't play into it?
Something else.
When did I say her demeanor doesn't play into it? Quote me saying that.
So it does play into that. So you agree that her demeanor. So since you never said that, sorry, you didn't. I said that you said it. So therefore, you agree that the Graham factors include an analysis of her demeanor, right? The most important factors include an analysis of her demeanor. Yes, yes or no?
No, they don't.
Oh, but I thought you said it was inclusive of that.
Right, listen, no. You're totally misunderstanding, misrepresenting me, okay? It's about a totality of circumstances, okay? You can argue her demeanor had an influence in this totality of circumstances, objective, reasonable analysis, okay? But that
I would. I'm glad that you concede that.
I didn't concede it. Okay, I didn't concede that. I just said.
Well, you literally are.
No,
yeah.
I'm not conceding. I'm not conceding anything, bro, because I'm right and you're wrong, and I've looked into this, and you know it. In deep down, you know it, but you've got to save face and do your aura farming to these people that love you. I see through you, dude. We grew up in the same rain plantation, dude. You know it, but it's okay. I'll let you save face. Okay. I know you're not as popular as me. It's okay. Go on.
The question about whether she's an immediate threat to the safety of the officers or others is in part factually determined by her demeanor, and so I'm not understanding why you're like, it's the grand fact,
because her demeanor could contradict
demeanor, mate.
No, listen. Her demeanor.
It could, but it doesn't here.
No, sure. It doesn't here, but I'm saying that you can look at the demeanor, right? But if the demeanor is conflicted by them presenting an imminent threat to you, right? It's more likely they're going to be more concerned with the imminent threat. For example, they're not going to say, well, they were being really nice and friendly, and then they pulled a gun out. You know, their demeanor, though, was part of the totality of circumstances, so you shouldn't have used lethal force. That imminent threat is going to be more determinant in how the court looks at the objective reasonableness of that use of force. Yes or no?
Yes. Sorry if I only took that on partially, but I had an example that flashbanged me while he was talking about context of friendliness being evaluated in its totality of circumstances. There's a Las Vegas shooting. I think it was Las Vegas. Somebody could double check for me. But there's a domestic violence shooting where a cop is taken by surprise by a gentleman with a revolver and shot in the face and killed. And what happened was they came to a domestic violence call that didn't have immediate signs of domestic violence. And so he's like, hey, bud, let me, talk to you over here or whatever. And the guy was compliant and he was friendly and he was nice. And yes, sir, no, sir, blah, 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 blah. He was acting like the perfectly compliant person. And then what ended up happening was the cop was like, hey, do you have any weapons on you? Anything that's going to poke or prod me? I need to search you for my own safety, et cetera, et cetera. And the guy's like, nope, don't have anything on me, blah, 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 blah. And then while they're continuing to have the conversation and the cop's going to search him, the suspect or the detainee pulls out a revolver, shoots the cop in the face, and he kills him. And so that's where, for me, like, you see, you guys, hate to say it, but the civilian population who was never engaged in like military, first response, anything like that, you guys look at this video of a woman saying, I'm not mad at you, dude. I'm not mad at you. I don't even care. And you go, oh, well, she's nice, so I can just take my guard down completely. Cops don't think like that. Okay. Matter of fact, I would say right before somebody runs on you or somebody starts a fist fight, sometimes they'll be nice to you in order to get you to drop your guard. That way they can get the jump on you. So as an example, we're taught as law enforcement officers to not put our hands in our armpits, not to put our hands in our pockets, and basically to keep our hands like right here in like a low ready stance where we're effectively either ready to grab the gun or we're ready to bring our heads up in order to protect our head. And there's lackadaisical cops who start, especially when they're on the job for a while, they start putting their hands in their pockets. They start putting their, they start putting their hands in their armpits. And what ends up happening is they get corrected by more senior law enforcement officers who have seen people who weren't ready for a fight or ready for a foot chase because they were in an improper lackadaisical position. So just pretending that like, oh yeah, somebody is nice to you, you can totally drop your guard. It's absolute cope. Total cope. So I just, cops live in a different world than you, and you need to understand that. I'm going to pull up the drawing that I made for somebody. I think I made it for Timothy Douglas. Timothy Douglas says, Connor, officer cause jeopardy. When you say this, do you mean it's justified or unjustified? I get confused when you say it. Intuitively, that says that it means you're saying that it's unjustified. So let's take a look at this. We have 4 barometers of what we're evaluating in reference to this shooting: tactical, policy, legal, and moral. Okay. When it comes to tactical, I'm just going to say it. This dude had dog shit tactics. Okay. Dog shit tactics, and specifically walking in front of a running vehicle with a person who may be a detainee is dangerous and stupid. That's just true. But tactics has nothing to do with legality or policy. You can have terrible tactics and get yourself killed or get yourself injured through terrible tactics. But the law enforcement establishment and the courts are not going to sue you for being stupid. Plenty of people are stupid, right? So the tactics were terrible, right? Let's get that out there and let's put that out there, which adds into the morality, okay? So let me put an X here for tactics. Terrible dog shit tactics, okay? Policy. According to whoever's policy, whatever Wick showed, that there is written policy that you do not walk in front of walking vehicles. But as I've just told you today, as somebody who worked in law enforcement, if you engage in bad behavior that violates policy, if the administration likes you, they're going to sweep for you and they're going to say, oh, it was adrenaline, it was heat of the moment, it was this, it was that. As a result, we're going to forego enforcing administrative punishment in reference to this policy. Whereas if they don't like you, then they'll be like, oh yeah, fuck this guy, he violated policy, let's fire him. And you've seen that. You've seen that. Matter of fact, who was it? Christian Valeris brought up the Houston police officers. There were 4 police officers who were fired, I think, by the police chief after being involved in a questionable shoot. And the police chief's argument was effectively like, they didn't care about human life. They were reckless in the way they conducted themselves. They violated 3 or 4 policies. Therefore, they're fired. Fuck off. And then what ended up happening is, as a part of the union shit, they were allowed to appeal their firing and appeal their policy violations. And so as a result of the police chief presenting a weak case in reference to the policy violations, they got their jobs back. So once again, it's kind of, policy is very flexible and it has almost nothing to do with outcome, I suppose. It's very political. Now, legal. Vehicles, even vehicles at low speed, are judged reasonable threats of death or great bodily harm, and the citizen has the duty to surrender to lawful authority. She knew they were a lawful authority, and a cop was in front of her vehicle when she chose to flee. She chose to flee anyways, putting the cop in danger through her actions based on imminence of death or great bodily harm. Cop was legally justified in the shooting. Officer caused jeopardy could change case law in the future, and this is a prime example. So I'm with officer caused jeopardy, but with the law as written, I don't think you're getting a conviction out of this. Like my statement from day one was, there's a 99% chance he's not getting hit with policy violations. There's a 99% chance the feds aren't charging him, especially with the Trump administration. But I also think there's like a 70-30 chance that he's not even charged at the state level. And even if he's charged at the state level, I think there's a 99% chance that he's getting out of it. So from a legal perspective, I actually view that as a green light for the officer. Now, moral, I'll put red. Okay, I'll put red because I want you guys to hear me when I say this. I think that the cop's recklessness, his stupidity, him being dragged in front of a vehicle previously and getting 12 stitches, his unsound tactical approach, his lack of officer safety, I think it partially caused this incident. I think that morally he is partially responsible for what happened in this incident. But I also think that if Renee Good had put her vehicle in park and turned off her engine, she wouldn't be dead. Right. And so from a moral perspective, I think Renee Good has partial responsibility for her own death. But I do think that the officer is largely responsible. But if you want to reform law enforcement such that in the future we no longer have Renee Goods as a result of American cops being trigger happy, you have to focus on officer caused jeopardy as a legal concept, and progressive and liberal lawyers are going to have to fight for that to be enshrined into law as a part of deadly force doctrine. And if you don't do that, there's going to be plenty more Renee Goods. There's going to be tons more Renee Goods. So when you guys like soy out and you say, oh, he violated policy, oh, he had bad tactics, oh, it's morally bad. If you don't change the law of the land, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything at all. And then also when you say, oh, he's going to go to jail for murder, probably not. Like, honestly, I would bet there was somebody who was saying that like, oh, I think he's going to go to jail for murder, maybe murder 3. I'll bet you $100 he doesn't. I mean, it's grassroots hegemon's money, but I'll bet you $100 he doesn't. So, you know, what do you want from me? I'm going to let this play out though, because I actually want to see them break it down a little bit. And so I want to see them go through the video. So I might let it run a little bit longer. I did run on chat interaction for an hour before we started stream. So I'm going to let this run a little bit longer than typically because I actually do think it's incredibly interesting. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. We're at a 7 out of 10 on the goal. We have 15 minutes left. Okay. So if some chippers want to throw $2, $5, $10 into the chip can, if you're brokies, you're paying your bills, you're taking care of your family, you're doing whatever, I don't care. Take care of your people first. Okay. I'm doing fine financially. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be fine. But if you want to help me hit the goal so I can reset the goal, then please chip. Anyways, let me save this. And I hope I answered your question, Timothy Douglas. What is this? Minnesota shooting Tim Douglas multivariable analysis. There you go, Tim Douglas. You are immortalized in the stream. You have a drawing named after you.
I didn't
yes or no? Yes or no?
I don't understand your question.
Okay. What's more important to analyzing this? Someone pulling a gun or someone having a smile on their face? Which one?
Pulling a gun.
Right. So by her demeanor, what's more important here? What's more important here? Her demeanor or the arguable threat of her driving a car towards or away from the officer?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that the car analysis is more important than her demeanor.
So
but I didn't claim otherwise.
Why did I have so much friction on this then?
Yeah, because I was saying
no, you didn't.
You spazzed out because you have a low emotional maturity.
Okay, you didn't know what the ground factors were. Okay, you've been exposed on that, right? You didn't know because you've not looked into it.
The ground factors.
Look it up, bro.
Yeah.
Look it up. It's real. Okay, it's a thing. You didn't know that. Okay. You argued the demeanor, and I said the demeanor can be included, but these ground factors are likely to be more determinant or more influential because a threat is more important in analyzing an objective reasonable analysis than demeanor. End of it. You lost. You're raped. End of story.
I'm going to say one more time, bro. Right? Like her demeanor clearly factors into the question of whether she would pose an immediate threat. And
right. But if I cite the Las Vegas thing where a guy was nice up until he shot a cop in the face, demeanor is part of it. It's not all of it. And Rob Go Slow says, I thought I was a moderator. It was nice while it lasted. I didn't demod you, bud. We're just split. Between Counterpoints Politics and Valor Media Network. I wouldn't be surprised if you were still a mod on Counterpoints Politics. You just weren't modded on Valor. So I just modded you. So there you go.
So you're saying the grand factors are more important than her demeanor, as though her demeanor were hermetically sealed and separate from the grand factors.
Well, no, it's a totality of factors. It's a totality of the circumstances.
No, I'm saying specifically the grand factors. This question about whether or not she's an immediate threat, which is, I agree, highly relevant. Her demeanor is a factor that one considers when analyzing that.
Yes, it's something one considers, but that is likely to be less.
Timothy Douglas says, Connor, how did the guy get the drop on the officer if he was actively going to search him? Sounds like more of a training issue. Yeah, the action reaction gap. So I'm gonna slap you digitally right now. Let's go full screen. Okay. Now, what you need to do, I want you to sit in front of your screen. I did this with Pisco. Maybe I did this with Pisco. Maybe I did with somebody else. Okay. Now, I will admit that there is lag, and I will admit that I'm talking to you through the internet. But I want you to try to. I'm going to slap you, but you cannot move until I move. Okay. You can't move until I move. I'm going to stare at you for a few seconds. I'm going to hang out. Oh. Now, how long did it take? Now, obviously, internet connection, lag in the stream, all that kind of stuff. But how long did it take for you to react to me dragging my face across the screen so you knew that I was about to slap you versus you responding and trying to slap me? And the truth is that the action reaction gap is typically between a half second and 1.5 seconds, depending on who you are. And so if somebody goes for a gun, which is something that can instantaneously kill you, and you pull it out and you fire almost instantaneously, then effectively, by the time you realize that they're pulling is the time that you're already smoked. And so that's the thing. It's like law enforcement officers and a lot of people practice their draw, and they try to get a draw in a shot sub 1 second, because if your reaction time is a half second, and you get your draw down to less than a second, then your draw, if you see an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm, you've got your ability to respond down to 1.2 seconds, which, by the way, could still be too late. It could still be too late. 1.2 seconds might be too slow.
It's important than the crime at issue, whether they pose an immediate threat or whether they're trying to resist or flee. Those tend to be the most important things they look at. You could put anything you want in there. You could say the weather, right? You could talk about how many people are on the street. You could talk about whether the officer had taken a shit or not, okay? But these 3 grand factors are so crucial because they tend to be the most determinant in terms of analyzing whether use of force was objectively reasonable.
I'm going to try one last time to make sure this gets across.
Go on.
Do you agree that one under the grand factors would analyze her demeanor?
No, because that's not part of the grand factors. The grand factors.
Of course it is.
No, it's
of
not.
Course
the
it is.
Grand factors. No, you're misunderstanding. Totality of circumstances is everything. The court said there are grand factors. There are 3 things: the type of the crime you're trying to detain them for, okay, or investigate or whatever, right? The immediate threat to the safety of the officer and whether they're resisting arrest, right?
My question is,
those are the grand factors. Those are the most important. Demeanor is another part of the totality of circumstances.
All right, I'm going to fast forward past demeanor. If you guys don't understand that demeanor is not the totality of circumstances, I don't know what to do for you. Just because you have just because you know everything hindsight doesn't mean that demeanor is everything. That's the main point.
I've got to rape you. I'm going to look bad. That's what it is. Okay. Do this with you for 5 hours. Okay. This is why you're underplaying the antagonism here, because she was in the road beeping a horn. Or,
no doubt.
This,
no doubt.
Right? So
no doubt.
And the thing is, mate, look, let's just not be too gay about it, right? I don't fucking like ice. You don't like ice, okay? But
I prefer you not use this heteronormative language.
What do you mean, dude?
Well, you know exactly what the fuck I mean.
TS Phantom says you're giving high standards to law enforcement, which have significantly decreased quality in their members and accountability. That's actually not true. So if you look at cops in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you basically needed like a high school diploma. Now it's uncommon to be able to get a job without an associate's or a bachelor's. It's also uncommon to, basically you either need to be a military veteran or you need to be 21 years of age. You typically have to do a pretty thorough background check. You have to do a psych eval. You have to do this. You have to do that. Now, you could say that there's still a lot of R-slurred, fat, under-equipped, stupid, tactically inefficient, dumbass cops out there. And I'll agree with you. Like I've said previously, a third, similar to all employment scenarios, a third of them are the worst dirtbags you've ever met. A third of them are average Joes who are just doing their best. A third of them are the best human beings that you've ever met. And so whenever I tell you about the best human beings I've ever met in law enforcement, it's because they're heroes. They're actually my heroes. They're the people that I think about and I get like a little bit swelled in my chest because I'm heartened by who they are and what they are, and I love them for what they are. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't tell you plenty of stories of dirtbags that I hate. But the truth is that over time, over the past 50 years, this is probably the law enforcement generation that has been held to the highest standards. And if you go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, and thousands, you're actually going to see substantially lower standards for who serves in law enforcement. So what you said isn't true.
Are you fucking serious, bro?
Yeah, it's triggering for me.
Oh my God. Right, but the thing is, you'd agree with me that regardless of what you think about ICE, I think about ICE, whatever, it doesn't change, obviously, the legal precedents and whatnot, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think it changes it. And that's why I'm not throwing out like a lot of people are like, oh, ICE can't even arrest, mate. They can't even arrest, mate. I'm not like doing that.
No, sure. And I know, yeah, I mean, that is like, there are some really terrible takes. But then, the thing is, well, the right had reflexively bad takes too. So it's just so happens that, well, I think they're largely correct on some stuff.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
All right.
Conservatism says good doesn't have the responsibility that an armed officer charged with the duty to protect and serve has. Morality informs laws. You fight for legality. We fight for morality. I'm telling you, you're wrong about legality, but I wish you well in your fight for morality. I think officer cause jeopardy should completely revolutionize use of force. I think that we should effectively be training our law enforcement officers like, yes, you have the ability to engage in deadly force scenarios. You have the right and the responsibility to defend yourselves and others. This is an important part of your job. However, if you are instigating a scenario in which you are being reckless tactically, you're being reckless morally, you're being reckless legally, and as a result, you partially cause death or injury to another party, then you might be opening yourself up to civil liability. I think that's reasonable. So, I mean, if you want to fight for it, go for it. I don't care. I'm just, I'm a white guy on the right side of town. I'm not going to dedicate my life to it. But if you want to throw some money towards a police reform organization, if you hear somebody talking about officer cause jeopardy and how it should be instantiated into law, throw them a $5 super chat. You know what I'm saying? Thank you, Jeb Kush, by the way. People can't comprehend the pressure that any person you interact with could be armed. Most people that want reform don't remember this basic fact. Sure. Timothy says, Connor doesn't mean anything. Do you mean that a judge would disallow the prosecution from advancing his violations of procedure to a jury or instructing a jury to dismiss it? No. Policy, violations of policy, it can absolutely be forwarded in front of a jury because it can attest to the recklessness of a law enforcement officer who is knowingly violating policy. So 100%, I think that could be a part of a court case. I just think that you can't incarcerate somebody based off of policy violation. Like a policy violation can be illegal, but is not necessarily illegal. Okay. So like, it could be my policy that in order to take a poop on the job, I need to deactivate my body camera because the people back at the station don't want to hear me taking a poop. That could actually be part of the policy, is that like in intimate areas like bathrooms, body cameras should 100% be deactivated unless there's an active crime going on. It is this police department's policy that body cameras will be shut off in intimate areas. And there could be a reason why. Let's say a police officer forgets that his body camera is running and he walks into the police station locker room or shower area and he films somebody like nude or naked or taking a poop or peeing or, jacking it. And they film that. And then because it's a part of a bigger court case, that has to be submitted to the court. And it's publicly embarrassing to somebody to be seen naked through body camera footage. There could be a reason why that policy was written. And yet, if somebody violated that policy, they could be, if they don't like you and you do it repeatedly, they could write you up on a formal charge saying, if you keep violating this policy, even though it's not a legal standard, eventually we're going to fire you. And I've had plenty of friends, I think including me, who were written up on policy violations because it was said, this is bad behavior. It's not illegal, but if you keep doing this, you will be fired. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure when I did a warning shot for a black bear, I think I was written up on it. Because we're not supposed to do warning shots. Weirdly enough, I think my chain of command said if I had killed the bear, then we would have been fine. But because I did a warning shot, that was a violation of departmental policy. Sign this document. If you do a warning shot in the future, we could take more severe discipline action against you. So once again, what I'm trying to articulate to you is basically that policy can correlate with legality, but it's not the same. Okay? And policy can be cited in court, but unless there's a criminal statute that's being violated, you can't be incarcerated for violating policy. You could be fired or dismissed, right? Or administratively sanctioned.
Go on, go.
So I'm taking, I think a reasonable officer takes into account her demeanor, takes into account the words she's saying.
Yep.
And this is an asshole. And by the way, I'm even putting aside the possibility that the officer themselves is trying to provoke a self-defense situation. That's not even part of my analysis.
Yep.
Although I think someone who would make that argument would take into that, like what this motherfucker says afterwards and what she's saying there. All right, so we keep going.
Yeah.
That's okay. We don't change.
So, also, sorry, can you just say, why do you think he's filming the car? What's your take on that?
I'm assuming this for a law enforcement purpose.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree.
So you know, it'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen.
So there's antagonism coming from her as well. Maybe he doesn't know that's the wife, but there's someone else that's being antagonistic towards him too, amongst the broader antagonism in the street, right? So you'd be on edge in this situation, right?
I don't think he's on edge. I think he's like pissed off.
Okay.
Do you think he's afraid of her?
Wait, what does pissed off mean to you? Can you...
I just caught up with chat. I blocked it. I dodged it. I parried it. You missed. Oh my God. Sacred Snow joke's on you. I put my butt in front of the camera and now you slapped it. You're gay now. Patriarch's reaction time is 200 milliseconds. Yeah, it can be. It can be. But I also think that you're thinking the second the synapse fires. Okay. You're thinking, Patriarch, I think you're thinking that reaction time, as in my eyeballs recognize that something is happening and I'm firing an electric signal down to my body to react. And so you say reaction time is like 200 milliseconds. I also think cats have a crazy reaction time, right? Connor, have you seen the Michael J. White Kimbo Slice punch reaction lesson? No, I think I have, actually. I think I have. Yeah, damn, rip Kimbo Slice, man. Rip Kimbo Slice. What a weird, crazy guy. For those of you who don't know who Kimbo Slice is, Kimbo Slice in the thousands and the tens, he was a giant black homeless guy. I think he was homeless. And he was incredibly physically powerful. I'll bring up a picture of Kimbo Slice. But Kimbo Slice started fighting. I don't think it was bum fights. I think it was like some kind of underground boxing thing. And so Kimbo Slice was just this brolic. I do not use the word brolic casually. He was just this big, strong, fast, vicious fighter. And so as a result, like, I think he did get, I do not think he did well in MMA. I think in MMA, he ended up getting beaten pretty easily by other people who were in the MMA. But Kimbo Slice was nasty in a street fight. Nasty in a street fight. Like, if you see the dude, I think I remember one time there was a street fight I watched from Kimbo Slice, and he punched a dude so hard that the skin and muscle was like hanging off of his face. Like, he basically cut a guy with a powerful punch so hard that he actually cut the skin and muscle. And then the dude's, like, I think he broke his jaw too. But I think the skin and muscle was hanging off the guy's face. That's how hard he hit this guy. I would not want to fight Kimbo Slice in a million years. I'll fight Hassan Piker. I'll fight anybody in Twitch and YouTube politics. I would not fight Kimbo Slice. I might not fight the Nazi guy who's crazy. I might not fight Sam Hyde, because honestly, Sam Hyde's like chaotic homeless person energy actually reminds me of Kimbo Slice now that I think about it. So I think I would fight everybody in Twitch and YouTube politics except for Sam Hyde. Unless we did like a sparring and training match and I realized actually he's not so hard and I'm harder than Sam Hyde. If I could train and spar with Sam Hyde and he wasn't that hard, then I would fight Sam Hyde. But just like off the rip, if you're like, Connor, agree to a fight with Sam Hyde for 20 grand, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I'm not trying to die. And then same thing with Kimbo Slice, dude. I would not fight Kimbo Slice. I would not fight Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson would also kill you. But anyways, I think he passed a few years back. I think he had heart issues from doing party drugs and from doing steroids. He also hung out with a bunch of pornographic actors and actresses in Miami. Overall seemed like a lost guy, like kind of a lost soul. But all in all, like, mad respect for being like a king of underground backyard boxing. So rip to Kimbo Slice.
Can you describe the definition of pissed and
annoyed?
Off? Okay.
Annoyed, not necessarily afraid or in apprehension of a reasonable fear of serious bodily injury or death.
Sure. I think that you could call that like on edge. I mean, I don't know. Did I feel like we're getting into the semantics of it? But like, he's frustrated. He's like frustrated, and yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I think an objectively reasonable officer should not be like fucking like that. I think an objectively reasonable officer has seen enough in their day to day and shouldn't.
Jeb Kush says, not all fat cops suck, fratty face. We had a really huge fat cop who was one of our trainers at the police academy. And I was like, why is this guy a trainer for a cop? It doesn't look like he could run from the desk to the door to leave the room. And it's because he's fucking brilliant. That's why the fat guy was an amazing cop. And that's why they let him train new police officers. It's because he had a JD already before he became a cop. I think he worked as a lawyer beforehand. He became a cop out of a sense of civic virtue. He was fat. He wasn't that tactically good. He wasn't that great of a shot, but he was a brilliant legal mind. And so he became a detective. He made amazing cases. He put a ton of bad guys away. And so as a result, all the CrossFit guys, even me, by the end of training under him, I was like, I get it. If you're going to be a fat cop, everybody thinks patrol cop. They think it's like foot chases and gunfights and all that kind of stuff. No, like 90% of it is like paperwork and shit. So if you're a fat cop, which is fine, there's plenty of fat cops, you either need to be a good shot or you need to be amazing at paperwork, or both. Do not be a fat, useless piece of shit. Okay, that's it. If you can't run, know how to fight. If you don't know how to fight, know how to shoot. If you don't know how to shoot, know how to do paperwork. If you can't do any of that, you suck.
Be like trigger happy because some woman is protesting them.
But hang on a sec, right? I mean, the thing is, you're talking about like an officer, right? I think that there has to be some thought process about, and this is where I start to look like I'm defending ICE. There is a lot of antagonism between ICE and communities at the moment, and you're seeing it in videos all over Twitter. And I think there is a sort of temperature around ICE that is leading to citizens to engaging in very provocative behavior, ICE responding in kind, and it's creating this kind of loop of antagonism, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that a reasonable officer would take into account the fact that there have been violent actions taken against ICE in recent months. I don't doubt that.
Thank you, Zen Patriarch, for getting us to the goal. Zen Patriarch took us all the way. I'm going to start another goal. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them. We have had 15 people donate so far today. Thank you kindly. Very much appreciated. What's today? Today's Thursday? Yeah, today's Thursday. So kind of a chill week. We're just kind of like rolling out the week. Like I said, there's some drama on the personal front, but nothing for y'all to be worried about. And overall, I love doing this job. Thank you for watching the content. Thank you for engaging with chat. Thank you for chipping if you're able to chip. Thank you for oiling if you're able to oil. Thank you for letting this be my job. I genuinely do appreciate it. Thank you. And also reset for goals. So over the next 2 hours, if we could have 10 super chats, even if they're all from Real Serious and they're all worth the equivalent of 7 cents because they're 100 Argentinian pesos, that's fine. I'm just happy to be here.
Okay.
But there's also lawful protest activities that happen, and as well as opposition, which is not.
Yeah, but her act. I mean, it's difficult to determine because unfortunately she's passed away now. But blocking the road like this is unlikely to be a legal form of protest, right?
Yeah, and Fatsimo, if that's true, sorry for interrupting again. The ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good last week in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, suffered internal bleeding to the torso following the incident. If that's documented, okay, if that's verified by news outlets, and if there's a medical report showing that he was actually struck by the vehicle and that he did suffer internal bleeding as a result, it's done. It's over. It's over. He will not get convicted. I'm just telling you. Like, I could be wrong. Maybe I could get my, maybe officer caused jeopardy or whatever will do it. I'm telling you, if he argued that he was an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm, and he suffered great bodily harm as a result of the actions of a civilian who refused to surrender, and he killed said civilian, he's not going to jail. He could be fired, maybe, probably not. He could be civilly sued for a wrongful death suit, maybe, and the ICE would take that on, and they would probably fight it and either settle it or whatever. But he's not going to jail. I'm putting that from 99%. I'm putting it to 99.9. That if the ICE agent has a medical diagnosis showing internal bleeding the same day immediately after this incident, it's over.
I doubt it's legal to do what this woman is doing.
Sure. Okay.
You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out the car.
He calls him fat. Would a reasonable officer be triggered that they?
some ugly lesbian fucking having a go at him. Jesus.
Yo, so do you like hate gay people now? You hate trans people now, right? That's what people told me.
Yeah, the
You're, like,
narrative
against
is
trans
because
people.
I got caught out messaging a few trans back in the day. Now I've got some sort of like pathological hate towards them.
Yeah,
but
what
it's
is
not
this?
true.
What is this like ugly lesbian, ugly like a transvestigation type stuff? Like, what are you doing?
Okay, she's a lesbian and she's ugly. It doesn't get much deeper than that, bro. Sorry, do you think she's attractive? What is
I
your
do.
objective, reasonable belief about her attractiveness?
F you, Chud.
This is beautiful.
Okay, dude. Dude, this feels so
Like,
bad. We're laughing about when we're getting shot, dude. Come on, can we just lock in for
I'm
a
not
sec?
laughing about that. It's just like you felt the need to like denigrate this person.
You're laughing about a widow,
And,
bro. Dude, come on. Get
You're the one
serious.
calling her an ugly lesbian, and you want me as
I'm just
what do you
stating
want me to
fact.
do with that? I'm
Listen.
supposed to ignore that.
Okay, that's just quick, dude. Come on, please, just focus. This is fucking crazy. Go on.
Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the.
I think so. You start to see her moving her wheel
Yeah.
to the right. Agreed.
Well, hang on a sec. Right, I can see it, but I don't know that the officer is necessarily perceiving that.
Would an objectively reasonable officer be perceiving this?
Well, the thing
That's actually Jeb Tan had an argument about that, where there was some case law that he was citing where due to proximity and focus and adrenaline and this, that, the other, that it's not reasonable to expect an officer to calculate the trajectory of wheels from a vehicle that's several feet in front of them. I don't know if that's true. I haven't read the case law. I'm just saying that Jeb Tan had an argument for this.
is, an objectively reasonable officer may be perceiving it. They may not. An objective
Would be.
No. An
Would be.
objectively reasonable
what else would they
officer
be
could
do-
perceive many things in these circumstances. An objectively reasonable officer may perceive that there's a 2-ton hunk of metal that is reversing and is imminently about to drive in a way that it looks like it's coming towards them from their perspective.
I think what you're suggesting is an objectively reasonable person, officer might have their like dick in their hand and just be like la da 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 da. No, an objective reasonable officer looks at the car in relation to their body and the driver.
Okay, that's not certain that they're looking at the driver. It's not certain what they're perceiving. This happens so quickly. And I would say
In your mind, as you see this, do you separate that out? No, as someone who's watching this,
you're
you've
doing
seen the car
20/20
and the
hindsight.
woman.
That's not advised by the Supreme Court. You're sitting in the
Yeah. I'm seeing people fighting about internal bleeding in the chat, like, oh, it's a bruise or something like that. Yeah, obviously you need to follow up. You need to follow up. You actually need to go get the med reports. I'm not taking that on face value. I'm just telling you that if it's the case that it's not, somebody saying like, oh, if you shake Trump's hand, then you get internal bleeding. Yeah, if it's not like that, then it's over.
council chambers and you're calmly pausing, rewinding. It's about the officer on the scene, what they're perceiving. I would say that in a moment like this, when a car suddenly reverses, when you're walking towards the front of it, okay, you're more likely to be perceiving the fact there's a massive piece of fucking metal maneuvering in a way that looks like it's going to fucking squash you to bits.
And do you think that an objectively reasonable officer in response to that would step to the side?
Here's the problem that you've got. An objectively reasonable officer could do a great many things here, okay? Just because one option is reasonable doesn't mean that another option is unreasonable. So an officer may choose to step to the side, okay? But just because that exists doesn't mean that a reasonable officer would then not be authorized to use lethal force in the situation, because a reasonable officer may decide that based on the totality of circumstances, that is the best use of force in that given situation.
No. Okay. So Fatsimo says, internal bleeding just means bruising, right? Well, yeah, but we obviously have to have the context for it in the photos. So for instance, internal bleeding can mean a lot of things. And typically, is it a contusion? Is a contusion how they typically medically describe a bruise contusion definition? Excuse me. A contusion is the medical term for a bruise, an injury from a blunt force like a fall or a hit that damages blood vessels under the skin, causing blood to leak into surrounding tissue, leading to pain, swelling, and discoloration. So here's the thing. If this guy has this, and that's what they're saying is internal bleeding, then I'm going to be like, all right, like, okay, whatever, who cares? Now, I've seen people, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like a seatbelt bruise. I've seen seatbelt bruises that'll make your mind spin. This one, right? This is a seatbelt bruise, bro. If you showed me something like this, then I'd be like, is what it is, right? Look at this one. Look at this female seatbelt bruise. I know females bruise like more easily than other people, but if you showed me something like this, then I'd be like, it's over.
Just what use of force? To stand there or to not move to the side is the best use of force?
No, to shoot being the best use of force. So obviously,
I know, but that's what I'm asking.
No, standing to the side isn't the use of force. Standing aside is retreating, right?
Well, I don't know that it's retreating from the entire encounter, but do you think an objectively reasonable officer? I'm just asking. You can say
no.
Yes,
Stepping aside is retreating. Stepping aside is retreating.
Baby Seal says, what's the chances he has a legit medical injury but was let go that day? Yeah, I think I'm with you that when I hear internal bleeding, I don't think of bruises. I think they typically refer to that as a contusion, if they're being honest. I think with internal bleeding, I'm thinking of like a vital organ. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking like you get punched so hard in the spleen that there's liquid leaking out of your vital organ, and they have to keep you overnight for observation to make sure that you don't bleed to death from inside. And if the bleeding continues past a certain point, then they actually put you in for surgery to see if they can stop the bleeding from the vital organ. So I feel like they're implying, if you had $1 to donuts, if you had to make me guess on this, okay, my guess is he might have a bruise. But I want my libs to realize that the bruise could be nothing and it could be serious, right? So if the bruise was nothing, then I'm with you guys. If the bruise was like that seatbelt bruise where it like went across the chest or whatever, then I would say he got hit. And at that point, once again, it's over. Now, if it's the admin exaggerating things by calling a bruise internal bleeding, then yeah, I think they're playing with the words, because when I hear internal bleeding, I don't think contusion. I don't even think serious contusion. I think a vital organ or blood vessel is damaged to the extent that you're bleeding on the inside, and you have to have serious medical observation and or surgery and or medication to prevent bleeding out. So yeah, if they show the pictures of the internal bleeding and it's a bruise that looks like what my son has when he falls on his knee, that would be a lie, in my opinion. That would be a lie. Thank you for the 20. Somebody dropped a little bit. Thank you. Alexi Time 3511 for the 20 says, the meta is that there is a campaign of provocative defense being perpetuated by DHS that is trying to provoke an event that led them to fabricate a BLM narrative. This sort of event is intentional and inevitable. Well, not only that, when we were on the WIC TV thing, somebody said that CBP got in trouble in the early 2010s for creating officer-involved jeopardy, where they were using that as pretext to shoot and or kill illegal immigrants into the United States. So yeah, if this is like an ongoing problem, then of course it needs to be investigated, and I think the law needs to change. I think that use of force scenario should probably no longer be as simple as imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. I can do a mag dump into you and nobody can say anything about it. I think it needs to go to, was I tactically and per policy in a smart way affecting my lawful duties as a law enforcement officer, or was I reckless, negligent, or malicious to the point that I helped cause a death? I think the law needs to change. Yes.
That would be considered retreating before using lethal force. Of course it would.
I'm not saying that you retreat from the situation. And
no.
Yes, Rob, I'm with you.
That's not what retreat means. No, you've got it wrong. Retreat just means that you take a potentially safe route to get away before you then use force. So stepping to the side would be considered a form of retreat, which is not required by law. Something that law enforcement officers are not obligated to do. So they're not obligated by law. They're not obligated by law to do it.
I'm not convinced that a step to the side is considered retreat for those purposes. But even putting that aside, assume it is. I'm just asking you the question.
We can take a Christian Blair's. Thank you for the 5. We can take a look at Barnes versus Felix now in a second. I just want to wrap up them covering the actual video.
Would an objectively reasonable officer? You could say it doesn't matter that he didn't. You can say that, but I'm just asking you the question.
Yep.
Would an objectively reasonable officer step to the side in the moment?
Possibly. But
I'm not asking possibly. I'm asking would they?
Well, the thing is, objectively reasonable officer doesn't mean that there's one best option. It means there's multiple options, right? And we can get into this in detail. None of them are particularly good. He can shoot, he can step aside, he can jump on the hood. The reality is, her maneuvering the car creates the jeopardy, and the officer is given a split second to respond, and they're making the best possible decision that they can with all the things that they've got in there. They don't have to do a threat matrix analysis in 0.5 seconds of all the various options and pick the best one to do. All that's asked is, based on the circumstances,
I'm not saying that.
Would an objectively reasonable officer do this and use force? And the answer is yes.
I'm just asking, what, in your view, what would an objectively reasonable officer do in this situation? Would they get out of the way of the car?
You're asking for one particular answer, and the reality is there is no one particular answer, because an objectively reasonable officer could do many things in these situations, okay? And one of those things that they could do is pull out their gun and use force.
So let me. All right. So I'll ask you: are you telling me that one objectively reasonable action the police officer could take in this situation is to be in front of the car in this moment?
Well, they weren't in front of the car until she started maneuvering.
No, I'm not asking. I'm not asking that. I'm asking: would it be the case that among the objectively reasonable actions that an officer would take, that standing in front of the car or persisting to be in front of the car would be among them?
Okay, but the thing is, right, you're looking at what...
You can answer
you're
that
looking
or
at,
not.
Okay, but the thing is, it's a dumb question when we're talking about use of force, because it's not about...
If it's dumb, just answer it.
Is there an option that means that you don't use force?
All right, I think I'm good. I think we get it. If I was to follow this all the way down the rabbit hole, then I would keep going because, number one, it's interesting watching Chud Logic, who is a drama streamer now, come back into the Twitch and YouTube political debate scene in order to throw elbows is funny. Pisco being autistic and legalistic is always fun. But I do think that we need to get something more substantive out of it and then change gears, because we're already hitting 3 hours now. So that's probably a 2.5 hour segment right there. And I already said that we were going over for it. So let's take a look at Barnes versus Felix. Christian Valeris brought this up. Barnes versus Felix 2025. I think somebody was saying that this was an officer caused jeopardy situation, but let's take a look at it. Barnes versus Felix. Officers must be held accountable for needless deadly force. Ashton Barnes was driving a car his girlfriend rented, which had unpaid toll fees. Constable Felix stopped them. When the car started to pull away, Constable Felix decided to stand on its runner and fire his gun into the car before he could even see inside. Then he fired a second shot. A bullet struck Barnes in the head and he died. Okay. Barnes's mother filed a lawsuit claiming that Constable Felix violated her son's constitutional rights by killing him. The district court granted Felix qualified immunity. The Fifth Circuit agreed, holding that the reasonableness of a police officer's seizure is determined based only on the moment of threat. In other words, all that mattered was that Constable Felix was in danger the instant he opened fire. It didn't matter that Felix put himself in harm's way by stepping onto Barnes' moving vehicle, nor that he killed Barnes over unpaid toll fees. Cato, the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, and the Center for Policing Equity filed an amicus brief asking the Supreme Court to reverse the Fifth Circuit's decision. The common law, the Fourth Amendment, is based on protecting human life by limiting when officers could use deadly force. They couldn't kill someone just for fleeing from being arrested for petty charges. Officers could only use deadly force to defend themselves if someone forcefully resisted them. Forceful resistance versus whatever resistance, passive or active. I could see that. Upholding these traditional rules is important for restoring public confidence in police. A toxic combination of legal limits of liability and economic motives to collect tolls unfairly benefits Houston constables like Constable Felix. But the Supreme Court could promote better, safer policy by confirming that no one is above the law. Ashton Barnes didn't die because he threatened anyone. He died because of Constable Felix's bad decision, and the constable should be held accountable. Okay, yeah, I mean, dude, this is it. We go back to my drawing. Okay. Timothy Douglas, thank you for inspiring a beautiful drawing that I think accurately summarizes exactly what we're fighting over. Is this Tim? Is this my Tim drawing? Let's see if we can pull it up real quick. Yes, this is it. So I think it's immoral in Felix versus Barnes for the officer to put himself in danger by stepping up onto the runner of the vehicle and then arguing that because the guy was fleeing the scene, he was in danger, therefore he needed to kill the driver. Okay, I think that's immoral. I think based off of legality that the Fifth Circuit just reaffirmed in this case, that vehicles even moving at a slow speed are judged reasonable threats of death or grave bodily harm, and the citizen has a duty to surrender to lawful authority. This applies to Felix or this applies to Barnes as well. She knew they were, or he knew they were a lawful authority and that a cop was in danger as a result of their actions. They chose to flee, putting the cop in danger through their actions. Based on imminence of death or great bodily harm, the cop was legally justified in shooting. Yeah, this is a 2025 decision. So Felix Barnes actually reasserts exactly what I just said, or what I've been saying for days now. Officer cause jeopardy could change case law in the future, and this is a prime example. I think Felix versus Barnes could be argued for officer cause jeopardy. Policy. He might have violated policy. Jumping onto the runner of the vehicle is probably not departmental policy. There's probably a policy explicitly saying that if somebody is fleeing and you do not have a violent felony, you are not allowed to engage in deadly force in order, and you're also not allowed to pursue them, right? And then same thing with tactical. Hey guys, is it tactically sound to jump onto the runner of a sports utility vehicle when it's fleeing you because the guy has, $50 in unpaid tolls, right? Probably not. Probably not a great tactical decision. So, yeah. Well, Samson, you're saying just imagine officers running in front of cars and then firing because it's moving. That's the precedent being established. That precedent is already clearly established. It's already clearly established, Samson. This has been the law of the land, not for years. It's been the law of the land for decades. So, I mean, you guys are kind of just catching up to the way violence and law enforcement works. So anyways, if you guys want to pressure your local congressman, have them write up a thing about officer cause jeopardy and call it a day. We could pass new legislation. You're saying that's not the decision in 2025? Okay, let's look at the 2025 decision. I'm not reading all this shit. Summarize it for me. You can summarize it for me. Read the Epstein file or read the Einstein folders. True. Let me check out the Wikipedia real quick. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oral arguments were heard on January 22nd, 2025. The court issued its decision May 15, 2025. Whether court should apply the moment of threat doctrine when evaluating an excessive force claim under the Fourth Amendment. Majority opinion, writing for a unanimous court, Associate Justice Alina Kagan rejected the Fifth Circuit's moment of threat doctrine as too narrow. Courts must consider all the relevant circumstances to evaluate whether an officer's use of force is reasonable. The moment of threat doctrine would have excluded from consideration the seriousness of the underlying reason for the stop, which is the case for a trivial unpaid toll. The seriousness of the crime is one of the Graham factors for evaluating whether use of force was objectively reasonable. Justice Kagan said a court cannot review the totality of circumstances if it has not put on chronological blinders. The decision is limited to expanding the narrow time frame of the moment of threat doctrine. The court's decision did not answer any open questions about officer-created jeopardy. The court remanded the case with instructions to consider a longer time frame under the totality of circumstances to determine the reasonableness of the shooting. Okay, I mean, that puts it into legal gray area, right? So that opens the door for officer-created jeopardy, but it still hasn't been argued successfully in court. So, yeah. Did I find the guy who got shot over 20 times on the ground? Nope. Sure didn't find it. It was a guy who was like high on PCP at the time. Maybe that was maybe that's the key word defining the case. Guy high on PCP shot 20 times after he's on the ground, knife. Could have sworn to God it was in Minnesota. That's in Orlando. Blake Brown. It might have been Blake Brown. No, it's not Blake Brown. Laquan McDonald sounds familiar, but I don't think it might be it. It might have been Laquan McDonald. Guys, can we take a look at this? Can you guys if you're not into violence, can you look the other way for a few minutes? I think this is it. It might be it. We'll take a look. This might be it. So he's running down the middle of the thoroughfare. He has a knife. He's waving it around. He does pose an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. I think somebody goes for a tase, but they start shooting. And then I think this guy, sorry, you guys seen it? I think that he's still on the ground, but he's still moving around, right? And the cop is still shooting. So I think the cop used the furtive gesture of Laquan McDonald trying to get up in order to justify the shooting. Although that's not the one that I remember. He was shooting for like a full 20 seconds. Maybe this is it without the audio, but once again, I don't want to tempt a YouTube community ban. So let's take a look real quick. What happened to the officer charged in Laquan McDonald's case? Jason Van Dyke, the Chicago police officer convicted of murdering Laquan McDonald, was sentenced to 81 months, nearly 7 years in prison in 2019 for second-degree murder and aggravated battery, but was released in early 2022 after serving just over 3 years due to good behavior. A decision that sparked significant controversy and further scrutiny of the Chicago Police Department. Okay, he was convicted. Okay, he was convicted. That's interesting. That's interesting. Good. Good, right? Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense to me. I don't know if it's as bad. We had the volume shut off because again, I don't want to trigger YouTube, but I do think that okay. 3 years for murder is crazy. I mean, he murdered a guy who was running down the roadway with a knife on PCP and waving it around and not listening to law enforcement commands. He probably could have shot the guy 3 or 4 times and put him on the ground, and that would have been ruled a good shoot. The reason why it was ruled a bad shoot was because he kept shooting, right? He basically took like aimed shots at the guy as he was on the ground. So yeah, so I don't, what are you going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, left-handed salute. Thank you, Fashion 40, for the $2. Parasocial love. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.